time for the Sunday show. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Welcome to the Sunday show here on the line. Jimmy Snow is with me, but away for a moment. How's everybody doing? I'm doing great. For those who follow, you might have seen a new post about a new breeding pair of snakes we got, some Honduran milk snakes. One of them is a triple het, and the other one is a visual albino that's het for two other things, but none of that stuff matters. It's time for the Sunday show, and that means that those of you who have theistic beliefs or supernatural beliefs or other things similar to that should be dialing your phone 720-619-2288 to reach us. A call screener will talk to you. They'll go through the details. Make sure you turn down your stream when you finally go live and all that to tell us what you believe and why. And while it's important for us to at least get some basic understanding of what it is you believe, like we've had people call in recently to say, "Oh, I believe that God is a metaphor for blah blah blah." Well, all right, I'll just be honest. I'm not remotely interested in some personal metaphor. I care about people that are making statements about reality that are going to have an impact on the rest of us. So if you think that there's a God that you've been able to detect and other people have been able to detect, but the rest of us are somehow missing, that's interesting. If you think that you've got evidence for souls or whatever, or even just pick positions that you think those woke lefty people on this side of this screen are just not going to agree with. But at the end of the day, it's about trying, and it does not always succeed, trying to have the best conversations possible about these God issues. And I'm currently weighing some options myself personally. This next week, I'll be posting some debate review videos on both the debate with Andrew and the previous debate with Daniel. And moving forward, the Line Network here, which, by the way, there's a bunch of great shows here on the line, including Skeptalk on Mondays, Dying Out Loud on Tuesdays, The Hang Up on Wednesdays, Transatlantic Call-In Show on Thursdays, and then whenever we want to, we're going to have debate shows like End Boss and programs like Hostility where we can get people in for interviews, things like that. It's your opportunity to go ahead and click subscribe and join and participate and support the line just across the board. But I've been reviewing an opportunity. There's an individual that I've never met, but I've spoken to them or spoken about them in the past, and they are a public figure that is, I think, some kind of moderate loosey-goosey. I don't know. It'd be very hard for me to categorize their thing, but they're an advocate for religion, and they've said negative things about new atheists in the past. And there's an opportunity for me to potentially go to some place like New York City and do another live on stage, 3,000 seat type event with this person to have a conversation about religion. And I'm really tempted to say yes, especially since not only is it I think it'd be a good opportunity to teach and learn stuff, but it's an opportunity to get back to doing the things that I was doing before COVID kind of sidelined everything and put me in a position of taking internet debates with, I don't know, evidently flat earthers in some cases. But no, it's not Jordan Peterson. This is somebody who I said I've not met before. So I'm weighing that decision. Are those the kind of events that you guys might want to see? Like if I was going to come up to New York for another, like take the event that I did with Dinesh D'Souza. We did an event in New York City in March, just as COVID was starting. And I think there was a lot of good that came out of it, even though, turnout was moderately late for that. But if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in, by all means, find a way to let me know. We're not going to put up a poll here on the line for that because this isn't a line thing. But as a reminder, we have lines open. We've already got a caller on the line. Theists are always going to have priority here. There's a lot in the works, not to mention LineCon coming in April in coordination with the eclipse. Jimmy, welcome back. How are you, sir?
Hey, man. Well, I mean, it's probably not going to be a secret this episode. I'm health-wise not doing so hot today, but I'll do my best and be here. I might step out a couple more times. Sometimes it helps me to be able to stand up and have my blood flowing. So that's why I've decided it's a nice thing about having a robot for a camera. You can stand up. It's not bad.
I thought you were going to say it's a nice thing about having a robot for a co-host, because then you can just leave and I'll just take over and talk for an hour.
I think I'm used to people thinking I'm the robot, but yeah, that's just because of the way I express emotions. Anyway, no, yeah, it's been a week. It's been lots of health stuff, lots of family stuff, having to deal with people who are grieving in my life right now. People probably noticed that I started the Sometime show and was like, and we're going to do this twice a week here on out. And then the second week shows up and it's like, so about this week, let's set that expectation next week.
It's one of the things that, and I get it. By the way, for those of you who are not patrons, you might have missed bits and pieces of information, and it's fine. We're not going to go through all the things that are going on in our life, but we are still a relatively small group of friends running a network here, and more than one of us have chronic health concerns. I can tell you this: I'm here today on the Sunday show. I'm not going to be on Monday's show, but I am going to be on Tuesday's show with Dave Warnock, and then I'll be back again on Wednesday. But I can tell you right now, there's an 80% plus chance that I'm going to shorten up maybe Wednesday's show. I've got a friend in town who I can bring in to do the hang up, but because Thursday is Thanksgiving, that means TACIS is getting preempted this week, is my understanding. Mm-hmm. Were we doing something on Thursday?
Yeah, usually I try to, on all the holidays, do an event for the other people who don't have someone to celebrate the holidays with. So provided that I am feeling better, there's a good chance we'll do like a stream of just a Thanksgiving stream farting around.
Cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you who I'm having on this Wednesday. Unless something goes wrong, Jeff Blackwell, a litigator for American Atheists, who you've seen on the show in the past, happens to be in town. So we're going to take the rig, the laptop Alienware rig that we've got down in the snake room that we use for our snake live streams. We're going to take that and set it up in the guest room. And then Jeff's going to come over and we're going to be co-hosting the hang up with me in this room, Jeff in the guest room, and Arden in the room at the end of the hall where her studio is to produce it. It's going to be, if we were at Jimmy's, we could just sit at the same damn table and do the show there, but
not at present. They've both been turned into but wouldn't be hard to adapt. Yeah. This desk actually, when you did it the one time, was flipped the other way. So you had each side of the corner. And then after a year of like, man, I haven't done a single other duo show, I flipped it the way you would do it for a single person. But it wouldn't be tough. Anyway, yeah. Well, I'm ready. Let's I don't know. Let's jump into.
Ready to get into it?
Jump into some calls. Yeah.
Awesome. First up today, welcome to the line, Chloe in Philadelphia. Pronouns are she, her, is a theist with a crisis of faith of some sort. Chloe, how are you, and how can we help?
Doing great. Not my first time calling. In fact, kind of a follow-up.
Cool.
I had called previously as a theist. Y'all told me to reconsider, told me to deconstruct, so I did, and now I'm back.
Cool.
Did we?
I'm sorry?
I'm always, I don't tend to use the word deconstruct ever, but I get what you're saying. I'm not doubting you. So welcome back. Tell us what's going on.
Okay. No, it's just that I came back and I realized that I'm fundamentally inspired by theistic writing, theistic thinking on subjective matters, not on objective matters. And the more I dig into it, the more I reject literalness in the Bible, literalness in my own mythology, but start embracing subjective and moral lessons instead of objective truths. I'm starting to find myself to be, quite frankly, comfortably nerdy in a very spiritual way, where it does not matter if this God is true, these words still inspire me. And that's where I'm currently at. And I'm kind of wondering if I can get the Dillahunty special, get me to work over my thinking, because I just want to make sure that I'm on the right path here.
Before I
Go ahead, Jimmy.
yeah, because I think you're gonna have much more to say than I do on this one. So I was gonna say, before you get the Dillahunty special, you can have the Jimmy appetizer, and the Jimmy appetizer is atheism and theism is not a consideration of what you think inspires you. It is a consideration of whether you believe something is true or not. So when you are describing to us that you feel very inspired by X, Y, or Z, lots of people feel very inspired by X, Y, or Z. Arguably, a person who's been a very famous, but I've literally never liked, which is why you've probably never heard me mention the person before, but a person who's arguably a very famous atheist in the past recently decided to become a Christian and with this sort of like, because Christianity, it's so inspiring, and I find it so, it doesn't actually list anything that sounds like a belief, just I have to get with them to fight Islam and wokeism at the same time. They're equal. Those are equal threats. Very stupid reasoning. I'm not saying your reasoning is stupid, but what inspires you does not affect whether or not you find something true or not. So I can be very inspired by, as I am, by the Lord of the Rings. I can learn lessons, as I do, from Lord of the Rings. I can be caused to introspect, as I do. I can feel an artistic sense of, holy crap, this is a thing that is, just forget our universe. Tolkien has created a universe that is larger than I can conceive of. So there's already other universes, obviously fictional, that are larger than my conception. So the phrase, when you're talking about, because in the notes it had said that you're basically more of a theist than ever, you have more faith than ever. What in the world does that possibly mean, that you have more faith? Would be saying that you believe it's more true than ever without evidence, not that you're more inspired than ever.
Well,
Yeah, and maybe you can, Chloe, right there with Jimmy, same question. I just want to add in thing. I don't understand what you mean when you say you have more faith. I don't understand what you mean by the word spiritual. So I'm not completely sure I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, so more faith means that I feel, so whatever it is, so when you deal with faith, when you live with it, it asks you to do something. It asks you to either pray, do this, do that, whatever
I'm not understanding.
So if
faith is the excuse people give for believing something when they don't have a good reason. Faith doesn't ask anything.
So you have no faith in anything.
I have no faith in anything, correct. But faith is the excuse people give when they believe something without a good reason. Because if you have a good reason, somebody says, why do you believe it? You give the good reason. You don't ever make an appeal to faith. But I don't know what you mean by faith asks you to pray. Maybe you mean it in a different context where you're talking about your faith, as in your religion,
faith.
where faith. Sorry, what?
Theistic faith.
Well, theistic. No. Are you using the word faith as a substitute for religion? Or are you using the word faith as a substitute for foundation for belief?
Foundation for belief.
Okay. Your foundation for belief doesn't ask anything of you. No foundation for a belief can ask you to pray or expect you to pray. It has no expectations. It's a tool.
For me, it's a feeling.
Okay. Well, I don't know how to deal with your esoteric concepts. You're going to have to describe them better so I know what the hell you're talking about.
So you've previously, so I know of your history. So you've previously been in ministry, correct? I just want to make sure I have my memory correct, because there's a lot of atheists, and I'm trying to make sure I've got.
I walked down the aisle at a Baptist church at around the age of 5 and accepted Jesus into my heart, was active in the church all the way up into my teens. Then I left and joined the Navy. At some point, I decided that God had called me to be a minister. I was studying to become a minister. I never actually went into seminary. I never actually went into ministry. I found my way out, and now I'm an atheist.
Okay. Just want to make sure I have your story straight.
My story is irrelevant to what you're describing.
Well, I mean, what I want to know is what kind of spiritual experiences have you had?
I don't know what the word spiritual means, as I've said probably 5,000 times, but what I think or what I know, or even whether or not I'm being honest in conversation with you right now, is irrelevant to you describing what you mean, because we're trying to get to what you mean. What I experienced is completely irrelevant. I don't know what you mean by the word spiritual. I don't know what you mean by the word faith. Nothing that I would have ever described as faith asked me for anything.
I think, Chloe, to sort of the question that you just asked, I think the closest to an answer that would make sense, because your question doesn't, is there were things that we mistook for spiritual experiences and are probably similar to the things that I suspect you are mistaking for, but I don't know what you think you've had as far as spiritual experiences go. However, that would make sense to me.
So a spiritual experience for me would be any experience that you're going to get upset with me again because I'm going to say another word that's going to need definition. Transcendent.
So why don't you define it, or not use a word that is basically just as gobbledygooky as the word before?
Because it's experiential.
That's not,
It
that's
is
not
an
an answer to my
experience.
question.
That doesn't tell me anything else. I've had experiences that I would call transcendent in a number of different contexts. That's you know, none of that makes any sense to what you're describing as spiritual.
So you don't think that
Correct.
Okay. I'm just not even going to go there. I'm not going to try to bring up cosmic
Yes,
aesthetics
because as I fucking said now, what I think or what I feel is irrelevant. Are you going to describe what you're talking about in a way we can discuss it, or are we going to move on?
I was hoping that I was hoping that you would have some sort of base experience that I could possibly build on and
I
empathize
was
with.
hoping that
Because
you would have a way to communicate in a way that someone could understand what you were saying so that we could talk about it. But you seem unwilling to do
you
that.
know what? I realize why I don't call into these call-in shows too often.
Okay, shut up.
You know,
Are you gonna
have a good day.
Yeah, great.
I'm,
Go
Okay.
whine somewhere else.
yeah, I'm just going to give up.
Yeah, go ahead and give up. Literally, like, you were the problem. I went ahead and took care of making before more whining was going to happen. You were the problem. You called in and you said, I'm very familiar with your past, Matt. And then we're surprised by, you don't have faith in anything? What spiritual experiences have you had? So you seem to be the least familiar, very familiar person I've ever heard of.
I think she's very confused, and it's frustrating because there's only so long that we can sit here and say, I don't know what you mean. Can you describe it? Okay, I don't know what you mean, but you can define. Can you define it? And then we say, oh, by spiritual, I mean any experience that is transcendent. Okay, transcendent of what? What can you? But if your spiritual thing at that point, you've now defined it as an experience. So all you're doing is saying that spiritual is a label that you put on some experiences that feel a certain way. That still doesn't tell me what spiritual is or what you're finding of value. The notion that you have more faith is absurd to me because faith isn't something that is quantifiable. It's not like, ooh, I've got 1 pound of faith and you've got 4 pounds of faith. Jimmy, when he heard what you were talking about before, took it to mean that you were, despite the fact that you deconstructed, you're now more religious than ever, and yet more left than before is what your thing said. I'm genuinely sorry that rather than making an attempt to put together any sort of description that we could work with, you decided you needed the Dillahunty experience, and you specifically constructed your answers to make sure that you got a very particular Dillahunty experience, which is, I need to understand what you're talking about in order to address it at all. And if you are unable to present something that I can make sense of, then I'm stuck. Yes. I'm going to define something. I thought for a second, I literally thought he was going to say, and he almost did. I thought he was going to say, a spiritual experience is any experience, and I'm going to use a word here that you're not going to like, that is spiritual. I literally thought those were the words that were going to come out of his mouth. People are saying you're muted.
Sorry about that. Well, then everybody missed the part probably where I said, Chloe, you were the problem. Maybe, maybe not. Oh, I know why I was muted, because I'm going to try an experiment here. All right. As we take this next caller, it's going to seem like something is wrong. And I'll explain in a moment, but it isn't. But you'll all in a moment, you'll figure it out. Joe in Canada, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt. Joe, how are you? Okay, hey, and hang on just a second, Joe. I am going to now reintroduce the call because I'm going to tell you what I did. It's not your fault, and I don't want this to set the tone of the thing. I actually muted your output to everyone but Matt and I because I thought you might be a troll who wanted to just yell obscenities as we brought you on the line. And I thought that would be a simple and easy way. So I'm going to start the call over here now because that's not what you did. And presumably you won't. So here we go. Joe in Canada, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good here. Thanks for taking my call today. I'm really surprised it got through.
Yeah. Well, cool.
I'm not picking up your voice there, Jim.
You don't hear me at all, huh?
I hear you now.
Oh, I didn't say anything else until now, so that's why.
I'm just watching you on the screen, and I assumed you were talking. No. Sorry.
They aren't synchronized. I would look away while we have our conversation. Joe, I got to tell you.
Okay, I'll try that.
I have a lot of doubts going into this call, but you have called to say that you, an atheist, would like to explain why you think that the Earth is flat.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
Well, there's so many variables that prove that the Earth is motionless and is flat.
No, there isn't.
Everybody understands water always finds its level.
Okay, so correct? This is a joke, Joe. This is a joke call. Why, Joe? I'm curious why you called in with a joke. Why you felt we needed this? Because this isn't real. You have heard already people say water finds its level. This is an old flat earth thing. It's basically a joke now. In fact, when they went out, a group of flat earthers filming a documentary to prove this, and by the way, these would be religious flat earthers. None of them are atheists. When they went out to film the lights through the holes and everything, they actually proved themselves wrong. So level would equal parallel to gravity, not flat. So whatever you're going to say about, I don't really believe you. I don't.
So
Matt,
you're telling me that the videos that have been produced with the P900 are inaccurate and false?
I don't know what the videos are. You going up with some specific thing. Anything that suggests that the Earth is flat is false. Correct. Because the Earth is demonstrably, yes.
So the Michael Morrison experiment that Einstein witnessed and walked away, then come back and said, "How do you know the ether's real?" That's false too.
Again, you going with a specific example of this thing with Einstein and da-da-da-da. There is no experiment that has shown the Earth is flat. You extrapolating from some experiment, therefore the Earth is flat, is a failure of your mind, not a failure of any experiment.
I totally, okay, I can understand your point of view telling me that, but how is this one in your thinking process accept the idea that the North Star can be seen and never moves, yet somebody on the East Coast, somebody on the West Coast, and somebody in the central area will see that the North Star does not move while you visualize it for 4 hours, but yet the star rotation revolves around it clockwise. Correct?
Because the North Star is aligned with the Earth axis. It only makes sense on a globe or oblate spheroid that rotates around a specific axis. It does not make sense on a flat Earth.
And by the way, it
So
does move
you tell
slightly
me
as a
the
result
axis
because we wobble.
6.6 degrees is correct?
Joe, you're not serious.
I don't think this is real.
I'm done taking this call.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
It's too stupid. It's kind of one of those things where there's not a way to, even if it was somehow real, but it's not. What do you do with it?
Yeah, it's just listening to Joe. Look, the people who are globe skeptics or flat earthers,
Mm-hmm.
they've walked through this. And when you they don't just raise an issue. And then when you say, no, that's not correct, here's why. They don't just say, so you're telling me this. 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 Stop worrying about what people are telling you, Joe, and go read a fucking book that actually contains some science and some actual methodology. Even the flat earthers who attempted to demonstrate flat earth in the closest thing to a proper scientific experiment they could wound up debunking themselves in a documentary that got them mocked mercilessly. It's ridiculous. If you're a flat earther, just start running and keep running until you fall off the edge.
Yeah. Well, they can't because when you get close to the ice wall, the U.S. military will intercept and murder you, I believe is the conspiracy that they make up. By the way, I just put in the live chat a poll. Anybody who's watching right now live can go and respond to the poll. Do you believe the Bible is fundamentally true, as in it holds truths more than just there are some historical events in it that do line up with actual history? Do you believe that the story of Jesus and the crucifixion, the Exodus, these things that are fundamental stories to Christianity, do you believe that they are true? And so far, 6% of you are saying yes out of almost 200 votes, 5% of you. And I'd love to hear why. I would love to hear somebody call in and tell us, why do you believe that the Bible is fundamentally true?
And if you're an atheist who said yes, that you believe the Bible is fundamentally true, feel free to call in and explain that too, because I may actually agree with, like, I'm sure there's a pedant out there who, like me, would say, well, the key elements of the Bible are stories about humanity and Jewish history, and I believe that most of those are fundamentally true, but I don't believe the supernatural. You're doing kind of like the Thomas Jefferson or the Jefferson Bible, where he went through and he cut out all the areas or sections that were supernatural, and so you'd be like, then it's fundamentally true. But I think what Jimmy meant by fundamentally true is these stories that are foundational to the doctrine of Judaism and Christianity, or the doctrines of Judaism and Christianity, about there being a God who created and did it in 7 days, and that the Tower of Babel is the correct explanation for the origin of diversity of language on here, and that I did have an interesting argument the other day, Jimmy, that was it wasn't that interesting, but it'll be good enough for right now. There was an individual who suggested, because I posted about the Noah story, and they're like, I think that if you read it correctly, you'll find that it was a local flood. And all I did was try to point out that you not only can you not say that, but a plain reading suggests that it was a global flood, and a plain reading of the intent of God suggests that it had to be a global flood. If you're going to wipe out all of humanity because you regret that you made them and you want to start over, you don't just flood one little region. You don't just take it. Hey, we're going to leave the koalas in Australia. We're just going to pick up the local animals, put them on a boat, and save 8 people in this entire region. That's not how God deals, or how a God would deal. Actually, we don't know how a God would deal with it, but it doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
If the problem is the sinful nature of man and the disobedience of man, and you say that you regret creating man, and you're going to take him out along with all the other animals. I don't know what the animals did. The non-human animals, I don't know what they did to deserve God's wrath, but anyway, it was really I'm reading it correctly. And that is an intriguing conversation, because what you're saying is, for thousands of years, people have been misunderstanding this. and God has done nothing to correct that misunderstanding. But now you have the correct understanding, and your solution not only doesn't solve God's claimed problem, doesn't fit God's claimed goals, but has no more evidence for it. It's just less unlikely. A local flood is certainly less unlikely than a global one, but it has no more evidence for it. And you're gonna try and base it on specifics in language. It was pretty preposterous, but
I gotta say now, after something happened here in the live chat and they've been banned, usually I wouldn't draw more attention to a person for this, but I no longer think not only was the last caller a flat earther, I actually don't even believe they are an atheist anymore. And the main reason is why I suspect that is that they are actually branding themselves as the atheist flat earther. And when you look at their profile looks like the way a theist thinks an atheist would represent themselves, so that their username would include the numbers 666, a fundamentally Christian set of numbers. Not to say that we don't make jokes about it. And then the bio of that channel refers to it as the new religion that is sweeping across the flat plane. Yeah, I don't buy anything about this person's identity.
Well,
presented today.
This is. It could also be that it's just a troll, since this is exactly the stuff that Howard tried to come up with, including by pointing out that the 66.6 degrees was coming up all through the various calculations and all this.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely bored by the flat Earth stuff. By the way, last thing I'm going to talk about before we get back into callers, because we got callers queuing up. The videos that I'm doing for this month are going to be a posting of the debate that I walked out on, and a debate review of that, as well as the debate reviews for the debate with Daniel. And then I'll be done with all of that as we move forward on much better debates. But one of the things I'm doing in particular is when Andrew showed up and made it all about me, conceding my entire worldview, and then launching into an attack that went directly to perhaps some of the things I'd said in a previous debate, some of the things I'd said on Twitter, et cetera, and made it all about me. And I left, and I should have, and any decent person should have, and the people running that should not have continued to platform him. Also, one of the individuals that works with that organization has now decided to become a big fat liar because they're desperate to be a big shot. They were in a podcast and they're like, well, if you want to know the skinny, I'm the guy. I've gotten emails from Matt. I used to do this and I used to do that. And I knew that he was thinking about possibly leaving. And so he planned that walkout. Yeah. Yes. I planned the walkout because I can arrange with someone I've never met, never spoken to, don't know.
Yeah.
I can arrange for them to be a complete unmitigated jackass, refusing to debate the Bible or defend the Bible and Christianity as they had agreed to, refusing and conceding my worldview, and then making it all about let me shit on trans people. I can arrange that with my opponent. It's as if I didn't need more reasons to not work with those people.
Be real embarrassing if I had a text message at the exact moment you decided you were leaving, and it was during the debate, because that would sort of disprove this idea too.
Yeah, literally, you'll see my phone in my hand.
Yeah.
And I have messages from that minute that I sent to James to tell him I was leaving. I sent to Jimmy, and I sent to Arden. But anyway, it doesn't matter. What I'm going to be doing is there were people who are like, oh, Matt ran away because he's afraid to debate gender ideology and trans stuff, which is absolute nonsense, because this is stuff that I've addressed on this show, on other shows. Hell, go back and watch my on-stage interaction with Dinesh D'Souza, where he came up with the most cartoonish transphobic things, and I defended trans rights there, as I've been doing many times over many years. But I'm going to go through Andrew's garbage opening and answer every question he asked in that debate review, just so that, because it's worth doing. Somebody came after me and they're like, oh, I'm a big fan of yours, but I must admit I've lost respect for you because you walked away from a debate when you could have used that as an opportunity to teach people and to counter this sort of bigoted hatred that your opponent was there. You're right. I could have done that, but I'm not going to sit there for someone who has zero respect for me, zero respect for the debate process, who lies, and who is there to promote their own channel. The guy showed up with his own microphones, his own camera, immediately promoted his own debate thing. Modern day debates got played. They got played, and then they allowed him to keep playing them while they took questions from the audience. The only dignified thing was to leave. Anybody who disagrees, well, you got your opinion, I got mine. But we'll be covering all that.
That's an incredibly stupid point people make anyway about you should have just stayed, blah, 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 blah. Utterly stupid when it's all that tells the other side is if you want to say your loud, bigoted bullshit, lie as much as you need to get the person there, as though anybody actually thinks afterwards that people would have been like, oh, well, Matt won because the people who just say, nope, boys have penis, girls have vagina, those are the people who he could have reasoned into. That's basic biology. I learned it on Kindergarten Cop. Those are the people that would have heard the reasoning and gone, now I see. I'm sorry. I've been educated. When it's literally in the first place, when you're fighting against a bigot and they lied to get there. And this is why actually in the past, and there wasn't even bigotry from the side that did it, while I found the moment funny back when Steven Crowder was tricked by Ethan into a debate with Sam Cedar. And then when Sam Cedar showed up, he was like, I'm leaving because you lied and this was a trick. Was it funny? Yes, because Crowder has been dodging Sam Cedar for years. However, do I actually blame him for it? Do I actually go in that scenario? Ethan was the one in the wrong. Sam Cedar was the one in the wrong. And then trying to play it as, see, he's running because he's scared when fundamentally they lied to get him there. In that scenario, the whole thing's built on a fucking lie. Weird. You don't reward lies.
It's weird because, well, there's an individual who's desperate for attention, and they had volunteered here in the past, and then thought they could just come in and be a co-host, and when they were basically told no, that's not going to happen, then they ran off to Modern Day Debates to do stuff. And now that, after I walked out of the Howard debate, we exchanged emails where they were trash talking Modern Day Debates, and it's like, yes, this is so exhausting. People keep showing up to debate you instead of debating the subject. I understand why you left and all this other stuff. And now that I've completely cut ties with them, that same individual is the one who's going on podcast going, well, if you guys want to know the secrets, I'm in the know. I'm the big you little fucking liar.
The weird
Don't
thing
ever
about
come
that
here
was
looking for work. I don't hire liars.
Somebody sent me a clip of them saying that I'm going after them, which until this week is a person who, and I genuinely don't really think about them otherwise, but I have never purposely made a directed comment at them. Anytime I've talked about like the moderators or the people at the place, I was almost always, in fact, when I was surprised when someone on the show was like, oh, James didn't moderate that debate. I was like, oh, okay, well, the moderation wasn't any better, but I've literally never purposefully directed anything, and I've definitely never said their name. So it's very funny to be told I'm going after somebody I don't think about, and we'll just return to not thinking about, to tell you the truth.
Anyway, that's like way more than we need to waste time on here at the line. I'm just, it's funny when people start lying. The number of times that people show up for debates and they want to debate me and not the subject, and you're going to lose every single time like that.
Oh, sorry. You weren't done.
And then people who try to use me for their own benefits, because there's a number of people who, over the years, I'm going to mumble and not say it, who tried to leverage me to get themselves attention. They want their own show. They want to do this. They don't want to have a real job, was what one of them said. Another one, went a completely different route. And when it doesn't work out for them, or when I find out that they're a fraud and I cut them out of my life, I'm not going to say any names. Then they start lying. Then the attacks come with the lies, and it's just absolutely hilarious. Do people think I don't keep fucking receipts?
It's a pattern though and that's actually something that now I expect. And so here's my little PSA to people who are thinking about becoming a YouTuber. If your plan to get to the top is to try and pull people down, you'll be the one who loses relevance. You'll be the one who it's a literal pattern with small YouTubers see the people they want to be above, and rather than be more exceptional, make better arguments, make better content, they will join in, and it tends to happen in waves and groups. They'll join in with other people to try and take that organization or people or group, person or creator down in the thoughts that, oh, that'll create a vacuum that I can fill. And even when they successfully pull those people down, it's never them who takes it. And people with those instincts, it's sad. The thing that makes me sad is, and this has kind of happened in this instance, is they often pull other people into it. And so, now I'm sitting here going like, no, that's unfortunate, because there's now a group of people that frankly, like, it's not out of bitterness. It's out of, I avoid that drama shit like the plague now.
Yeah.
I've admittedly been sucked into it, but I'm not going to work with people who don't avoid it.
There are some people. So like, there are some people who are, awful and liars and try to do this. And there are people who are friends with them. Of course, you're going to want to stick with your friends and try to trust your friends, especially if you know your friends more than me. But what's been interesting is watching the people who joined their friends in talking shit about me or you or whoever or whatever. And then they find out later that the person they thought was their friend is not their friend.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, people who haven't talked to me in years are starting to reply to my tweets, starting to reply to my Facebook messages, because they're starting to find out that they trusted some of the wrong people. And it's fine. It's no big deal. I genuinely don't sit around going, oh, I'm still mad at, there's like 4 people, maybe 5, who I actively despise and will never have anything to do with, no matter how nice they turn out to be once they've had their redemption moment. And that's it. And probably 2 of them, I can't even tell you why. And by that, I don't mean I'm not going to tell you. I mean, I don't remember, because I don't hang on to this shit.
Yeah.
Jimmy and I have phone calls. We did a drive back from Dallas, but there's a number of times where I have phone calls and he'll be like, don't you remember so-and-so? They did this and they did this and they did this. And I'm like, no, I don't. I think I kind of remember something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, Theus, we want to get you on the line. Call in. It's 6% of you have said, out of nearly 700 votes, that you do believe the Bible is fundamentally true. We would love to have a conversation with you, hear out your reasoning. That's what we would like to do. And yeah, I guess I do just want to say, real quick, I guess last thing, my problems with modern day debates are separate from the problems we've just been talking about. So I have plenty of negative things to say. However, I'm not trying to build this as a, like, here's the latest thing on, technically they're separate while being combined. I'm not trying to make drama between us and that channel any more than me just saying that I think that channel is they're just kind of never going to get better.
Also, I need to do one more thing, because I only took care of this in chat, because chat's where somebody corrected me. So Chloe's pronouns, the previous caller, was she, her. And I thought that I had used she, her. And I know that I did at least on 1 or 2 occasions. But evidently, I also used he, him pronouns at some point in referring to Chloe as well. My apologies. Not remotely intentional. I saw the note. It's entirely my fault for not catching that. I didn't even notice that I did it. But thanks for correcting me.
There's another chat that just made me smile, but I can't draw attention to it. Cameron in Wisconsin, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Wow, I think we both put them on at the same time.
Nice.
Oh, sorry, was that me?
Yeah, hi Cameron, how are you?
Yeah, that's you, Cameron. How are you?
I'm good, and yourselves?
Mm-hmm. Fine.
I'm alive.
Yeah, trucking along. I got a pulse.
So, my question was related to logical syllogisms, and I was wondering if they can include not statements.
Yes.
That doesn't like invalidate structure or soundness or whatever.
No.
That was basically it. I had an example, and it's not a very good one, because I'm pretty sure people can just be like, no, I don't believe that. But if they can't include not statements, then that's fine.
Yeah, I'd kind of recommend trying to figure out the best way to phrase this. I'd kind of recommend that you go read like the Wikipedia article on syllogistic forms, because it will go through. Let me make sure it's still a good article there on Wikipedia, because it used to go through all the various forms to show, major premise, minor premise, conclusion. And so you've got, for each one of them, there's a coded letter construction that Aristotle and his band of merry logicians came up with. And so you have a universal affirmative, which is an A statement, like all humans are mortal. Then you have, so A is the code for that. It's a universal affirmative. Then E is the code for a universal negative, which is something like no humans are perfect. So there's your not statement, or your negative there. Then you have a particular affirmative, which is represented by an I, which is some humans are healthy, and a particular negative, which is some humans are not old. That's an O. And so A, E, I, O are essentially the vowels that construct the names of the various formats. So a Barbara format is an AAA. A Celerant format is an EAE. And so that shows the form of the major premise, minor premise, etc. And so it's a really good article running through there, so that you can kind of, and there's visualizations, there's set theory stuff there. The Wikipedia article on syllogism is really good.
I will say, Cameron, I think a lot of not statements probably make it worse or are unnecessary. So, for example, in the example that Matt began, the all men are mortal, you could look at the word mortal and go, okay, a synonym for mortal would be not immortal. And so you could create now the exact same syllogism where you say all men are not immortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is not immortal. However, it's
that's kind of similar to like the idea that I had in my head, which was like men are not gods. Jesus was a man, therefore Jesus wasn't God, kind of thing.
Sure, though a religious person, like a Mormon, would just go, well, what about the men who are gods? I don't agree that all men are not gods, because I think being a man and being a god is different. It's more of like being a man and being white. They're separate things.
That's about the content.
Yeah.
So validity goes to the structure. Validity goes to the structure of the argument. Soundness goes to whether or not the premises are true or accepted. I guess is probably even better than true.
Yeah.
I assumed it was valid, like structure wise, just not content wise. That's why I said it's pretty bad.
Ain't no thing. I'm actually glad you called. I kind of like. I had to think about it, and that was kind of cool. So
yeah, I admittedly, this is research I could have done myself.
Don't worry.
Like Matt, I'm kind of an obsessive learner too. So like once I go down a rabbit hole, it takes a while for me to get out of it, and I didn't want to do that to myself because of how in depth like that research can be.
Yeah. Still, this was only a 5-minute call where Matt and I have both called each other and talked each other's ears off for a long time on whatever our current learning obsession is. So it was fine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This was very streamlined. Anything else, Cameron, before we let you go?
Nope. I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me on. Thank you for answering my questions. Have a good day, guys.
See ya.
Later. Thanks.
Bye.
I think that'll be a good clarifier for all watching. I do think I'm trying to think of an instance where adding the word not wouldn't present more confusion than just trying to figure out the positive opposite. And I don't really have an example where I can make not more necessary or improves something, except for when you are trying to match maybe like a common colloquialism, that you're trying to actually match common language so that the thought experiment actually or matches what people are talking about. But I don't even have an example of that. That's just I can conceive of someone saying, well, because the wives' tale it says this phrase with not in it, now I'm going to create my syllogism with matching the phrasing. That I could kind of see, but I don't have an example of it.
I think we might be talking about, well, who knows? Within formal structured syllogisms, there's no problem with sticking a knot in, other than some structures are invalid once you like you get to formal fallacies like affirming the consequent type of thing. But some of them are problematic once you add a knot in there. I think where it's a real problem, which is kind of what I think you're pointing to, is in conversational logic.
Exactly.
When I'm trying to put together an informal syllogistic statement to be clear to somebody, and as soon as I put a knot in there, it requires your brain to undo something. Like, here's this, which is why we start talking about, double negatives and triple negatives. Well, why are you not letting me do this? And then it's like, oh my God, I gotta do all that calculation and everything. And so, yeah, just the more facets that one would have to think about, the less clear the argument is.
Right. Yeah, that's basically it. Just that it creates confusion in general in language. If I'm prepping an audience for a show and I want to say, like, when you applaud, it helps the energy of the show, is the better statement than when you don't applaud, it harms the energy of the show. They're very similar and they're saying the same thing, but one is actually, you have to think less and it's just more direct. Yeah, anyway, that's just like you're saying, conversational logic, trying to keep everything straight with everybody and limiting ourselves to our own brains, which can be such dicks. Anyway, on that note, let's talk to Amy in California. Amy, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt. Amy, are you there?
Hey, yeah, can you hear me? Hello.
Sure do. How are you?
I'm good. How's it going, Jimmy? I've been a fan for a while. Back in from like the 2016, when you look like Jesus, that era. Matt, I'm also a really big fan of you. That debate you did with Jordan Peterson, you reduced him to a shrub. Loved that. I won't
Amy,
keep you all long.
Before you go on,
what's up?
I'm a bit terrified that you're a stalker because I wasn't a YouTuber in 2016. So if you were following me for 2 years before I became a YouTuber,
were
this
you
is a
not
very
Mr.
scary
Atheist
moment.
back then?
I was Mr. Atheist when I started my channel February 14th of 2018.
Oh, okay. Well then, listen. I'm tripping. I must have my ears wrong. Listen.
I know what actually happened, and I'm going to fix it for you. And I'm just going to say this one time because I've never publicly said this, but it needs to be said. I am not TJ Kirk.
We won't even go into that.
That is not who I am. Okay, good enough.
Listen. I've been watching TJ Kirk since like 2009, but we won't even go into that.
And that's why you thought it was me.
Though, anyways, Mr. Atheist was great. Matt, again, love your stuff. I won't keep y'all long. I just kind of had one question that's sort of a two-parter. It's mainly, have y'all noticed in the last, probably a couple of years, really, especially this last year, the rapid intensity shift with, the fundies and extremists, right-wing Christianity folks, like the talking heads, because they're really ramping up their rhetoric, a lot lately, especially
I'm confused. So you're big fans and you're asking if we've noticed problems with the right wing?
Okay.
Have you watched any content? Have you watched any content we've done since Trump was elected?
Okay, let me add my second part of the question. I guess really the main part of the question. Which road, I guess, do you think we're going to be taking in this country? You think we're going to be bound towards theological fascism or secular progressivism? That's my main question, essentially.
No idea. I know which one I'd prefer, but I can't tell you what's going to happen because I've been wrong. I was wrong when I said Trump couldn't get elected.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are wrong right now saying Trump can't get reelected. For the record, I've been having this problem with people. Anybody who's underestimating this country's ability to be that stupid.
I'm waiting to see if he can get convicted when he's obvious to anybody that he's guilty.
Yeah, and for example, yesterday in Colorado, Friday in Colorado, the judge ruled that Trump did in fact engage in insurrection, but would not adopt the amendment which would disqualify him for insurrection. Which is a bit wild to me. Granted, he hadn't been convicted, whatever other arguments people want to make, but it's a bit wild to me, and it seems a bit obvious to me. But we already were expecting that to happen. I hope that these are the death throes of I hope that these are the death throes of Christian nationalism. However, that's what I really hoped 4 years ago. And we started talking to Andrew about it a little bit a few years ago. We were using that language. I almost am now in a spot where I don't know how there is a future with the United States fundamentally structured the way it currently is. And so I don't think that the entire United States could become fundamentalist Christian nationalists. Right. I don't think it could become a Christian nationalist country. But I don't think that that means that it wouldn't try and that all of those people wouldn't come to power, that a Christian nationalist could control all branches of government at the same time. I just think then when the imposition happened, things that used to seem completely unlikely, like secessions, would suddenly become likely. We already have one state that operates as both a country and a state at the same time. Its economy and population is so large. That said, I don't know that that would be the ultimate outcome either, because if that threat actually came up, the Christian nationalists would have to decide whether or not they actually wanted full rule of whatever was left, or to not live in poverty. There, I've just created a knot that makes it more confusing, because fundamentally, the right wing and the states that would be down for that, if something like secession, again, an extreme thing that probably won't happen, but doesn't seem as unlikely as before, was an actual threat, their economies would all... Mississippi relies on New York a lot. Yeah. Because they are one of the biggest welfare drawing states there is. So it's tough. It's tough to know what would happen, but I don't think the U.S. could fundamentally do that.
I guess part of it too, like the first part of my question, I was recently watching segment like Ben Shapiro's little sister, which I don't know, whatever her name is, Classically Abby, that's it. I was watching one of her recent videos, just kind of keeping up, and like usually they're a bit more nuanced with their like extremism, but like they're getting like more, I feel like more aggressive.
Yes, because they're empowered.
Exactly. And so part of me feels like, I feel like it's sort of like in the death throes, because I mean, like, Christianity is on the like decline in this country anyways, but like, it's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit jarring, because they've always had this, extremism, but like now they're just kind of going more mask off.
The thing is we don't know whether it's death throes or it was the thing in the cave that we didn't realize was there this whole time. We don't know whether it was the hidden monster or the dying monster. And there are other stats, like just seeing that Christianity is in decline doesn't necessarily mean that Christian fundamentalism is in decline. In fact, arguably, it may be going up. I don't even know if maybe is the right. It seems to be going up. But also spirituality, religiosity, and now the fact that being a Christian isn't all... Not now, but being a Christian isn't all that's required to be a bigot and to side with it. There is an unfortunate amount of people who think that the number one threat, after knowing what the threat of Islamic fundamentalism is, knowing what the threat of Christian fundamentalism is, they will say stupid things, like in open letters to their now ex-atheist friends, equating that wokeism might be equivalent to Islamic fundamentalist terrorism, and that it is that big of a threat to, in a British accent. I don't know if anybody knows the example I'm trying to say, but that happened this week. So it is. I don't find any comfort anymore in this is just the death throes. That was probably the closest thing to a faith statement I had adopted because I needed to feel comforted, and now I don't just accept that as true. I hope it is, but I don't accept it.
I think maybe I'm kind of I think I'm deluding myself, because I feel like that's exactly right, but I'm not willing to accept it yet. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was really my main question. I hope for the best for all of us here in this country, but I don't know, man. The next year is going to be really crazy. Like I feel them ramping up. I feel the fundies and the right wingers like super amping it up, because what you said initially about Trump and everything, that's going to get way crazier. So I just kind of wanted y'all's take. I do know I listen to the show and everything like that, but I just kind of wanted to see your perspectives on that.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Anyways,
been a little bit since we've had Andrew on, but I mean, I get Andrew on to talk about Christian nationalism, and so yeah, we're aware we've been banging the drum for quite a while.
Yep.
well, and what you guys are doing right now is really, I'm sorry, Matt, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just right now with all the rise of like this, what we're just talking about. I mean, you guys are doing, in my opinion, really good work because I think it's good to approach people that are willing to talk about it. And like, it's really, I feel like there are probably a lot of people that are questioning their faith. And so, and it's, I feel like it's just important for people to have freedom of mind more than anything. And I appreciate what y'all do. And, hopefully helping people to come to a more secular worldview and everything.
Yep. Cool. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Bye. I got a couple of challenges to issue. So if you're in the chat right now and you're thinking, hey, however many people have gathered, what are we up to? Over 2,000 people are here. So what I think I should do is take advantage of the fact that there is a live chat that could have all 2,000 of those people, though usually it's probably like 20% of that. And I'm going to start arguments in the chat. You should know you're going to be banned, or you're going to be blocked, or you're at least going to be timed out. The people to talk to the people to have the conversation with, the people to tell you about how convincing near-death experiences are, for example, are Matt and I, not people in chat. It's a blanket rule. You don't get to have, we don't summon our audience for you, period. You don't get to have a sideshow in chat. You get to call in. But look, if you want to call in, we'll have a lovely conversation. And just stay honest. Don't condescend, and don't avoid the question and be inconceivably pedantic after being corrected so many times. But second of all, I would say we have over 60 of you would have said that you believe the Bible is fundamentally true. Call us and explain to us what you mean by that statement, what fundamentally true means to you, and why you believe that. I would love to have a conversation with one of you about that, or all of you about that, though I don't think we're going to get 60 calls in today. And then finally, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, although if you're a theist, here's your golden opportunity to reach an audience bigger than you're going to find on your own.
Yeah,
for sure. And, go ye therefore unto the line, to do your due diligence under 1 Peter 3:15, if you're a Christian, to present the reason for the faith that's in you. And if it turns out, as you've seen in many of the calls, there's a lot of them where somebody's just like, hey, this is just what I believe, and I don't have any way to demonstrate it. And, it's a matter of faith and all this. And then, whatever, we part ways. I don't think we necessarily learn a lot, but I'm interested in how people justify things. I got in an argument actually just before the show, or it was the start of an argument. It's not really an argument. It was more of questioning someone who posted some stuff on Twitter, which I will never call X. But it was about epistemology, and it was from an atheist talking about, and like the original post was more a statement that it may be true that you've heard no good argument for God, but I don't think it follows that no theist can be rational. On the timeless mind point, I tend to agree, but that was a separate argument. And so I looked at this thing where it seemed to suggest that anybody was suggesting that no theist can be rational. I think theists are rational about all kinds of things. I just don't think they're rational about their God beliefs.
Yeah.
And so the question I had was, are we talking about, and by the way, Justin, if you see this, maybe it'll make the conversation easier. Is it possible that they're rational about other things and not about the God belief? My answer is yes. But this turned into a thing where essentially he was saying that rationality is subjective, and at the level of everybody's got a different epistemic situation, but the situation is about the collection of information that you have access to. And so I was trying to make the point that if you have an epistemology, which is your method of discerning truth, and it's demonstrated to be inferior to another epistemology, and you don't switch to improve your epistemology, I would say that puts you in the de facto irrational category. Similarly, if you have what would be viewed generally as a sound epistemological method, and then you cherry pick your facts, or you are misinformed or uninformed on facts, you can reach conclusions that are ultimately rational, consistent with your reasoning, and yet they're still wrong. Things like, once upon a time, it was perfectly rational to think that the sun went around the earth because the available evidence supported that more than it supported the truth, which was that the earth spins on its axis. But now, in the modern world, anybody who thinks that the sun orbits the earth, flat earthers, no matter what model they're using, they are either doing this with a flawed epistemology, which they can revise, or they're doing it with flawed information. So you get the kind of like the garbage in, garbage out category. Under neither circumstance will we point to those people and say they are rational in their belief that the earth is flat, or they are rational in their belief that the sun orbits the earth. That's kind of what I was going for. It's interesting potential conversation, but it gets down to, is rationality merely subjective? Because if so, then you're denying that there's any hope of a right answer at all.
Yeah. So one, there's something big I have to address here in a moment that came in. So now I have three more things. So one was the last challenge. The final challenge is, if you are a progressive Christian and you believe that your progressive Christianity has a more solid foundation, and actually I would go with progressive Muslim, basically progressive version of almost any religion. You believe that that has a more solid foundation and that your belief is more warranted and influences the way you vote than a Christian fundamentalist, than the people we were just talking about. Call in and tell us why. I would really love to hear that justification of why foundationally you are more justified both in your belief and acting on that belief than a person who is a fundamentalist Christian. I'd love to hear a person's reasoning on that. That would be, I'm very interested by those calls. We've had a couple of them in the past. Second, I saw the biggest, almost self-defeating argument I've seen so far, the most embarrassing one ever to come into chat ever so far. And that was a person who has been now timed out, I assume, or maybe just their thing deleted. When I was saying the thing about you don't get to use live chat as a sideshow to take away from the show, somebody wrote, why even have a chat then? Which is, I'll tell you why that's an embarrassing argument. Imagine making an argument or a point or a whatever you want to call it, and right before it, you have thousands of examples of things that are not what I said can't be in chat. I said, you can't come in to have debates. You can't come in to have a sideshow. And then you asked, why even have a chat then? As though that's all there is. And you have thousands of examples literally right before your chat of all of the people who have figured out why to have a live chat. What a silly, silly person you are. And then third, I want to address, draw attention to this. One, it is extremely generous, but two, also just I feel it's appropriate just also for the person's circumstance. We have had a absolutely ginormous super chat of $300 from Seth Erickson just come in that says, my dad, John, who was a member of the Clergy Project and a huge fan of yours, died last night. So in memory of him and to thank you for what you do, have some funds. John, that is extremely, extremely generous. Thank you very, very much. And I would actually probably encourage you to, if you want to share any part of your story, talk about it at all, and talk about your dad and his history with the Clergy Project, on Tuesday, Dying Out Loud would be an excellent place for that call. If you happen to have the time and the space, it sounds like your dad's story is probably one that the people who tune into that show would benefit from very much. So thank you very, very much, Seth.
I just sent Seth a thank you note as well. So huge, even without the financial contribution, just hearing that, there was an impact on people's lives that was appreciated, that was shared. One aspect of me is that no matter, I don't know you, Seth, and I don't necessarily know what your views are, but the fact that your dad had this view that you're honoring is amazing, because my dad and I don't share this, and I don't think that either of us would be honoring the or what the other one wanted with financial donation. I'm not donating to a church on behalf of my dad. It's just not going to happen, and I wouldn't expect my dad to donate to the line, if I were to die. But also, literally, while you were saying all that, Jimmy, somebody typed in the very question you had addressed. about it's kind of like, why have a call-in show
We'll have a live chat at all.
and have a live chat? Literally, that question came in while you were answering that saying that. It's so funny.
Yeah. Oh, why even have a call-in show if we can't have side chats? Did anyone? I will give you $1 million, and I can make this bet because I know you can't. If you can find where I said you can't have any side chats, so no side shows. You don't get to.
Yeah.
We don't summon the audience for you.
It's funny to me because, first of all, I love the fact that there are people chatting, and I love the fact that they're, as long as they're staying largely on topic or close to topic. What we have in chat are people who are supportive of each other, who are fans of this, who have side thoughts, and sometimes those side thoughts come out as well, why wouldn't you say this, or why wouldn't you say that? And it prompts people like me, who will multitask and read chat while I'm doing stuff, prompts me to potentially answer some of those questions. Somebody tagged me and tried to ask me a question earlier in the show, and I had to let them know I'm not taking questions in chat. By all means, call in if you have specific questions for either of us. This isn't really an AMA, so there's some questions we're probably not going to take. But the mods are there to make sure things don't get out of hand. You can have your conversations, but if it looks like you're trying to turn things into a side show where, I'm going to just sit here and talk trash about about Matt and Jimmy, then they're going to tell you to call in. And the fact that you won't demonstrates what you're actually about. Yeah. You're not interested in answers to your question. You're not interested in having a conversation. You are trying to either drum up attention for something, or you're just trolling. And why wouldn't we put a stop to that?
I might have to reconnect this one. Let me just figure out what input I had them on.
Did we lose somebody?
Yeah, but they called back in, and I already had them on a card, I think, but they seem to now not be on a card. I was going to check that one next. Anyway, theist callers, spiritual callers, if you believe in ghosts, if you believe in God, if you believe in the Bible, we'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, here is Ben in New York to, I don't know, has a point about determinism. Go ahead, Ben.
Hi.
Hello.
Hope you guys are well. Appreciate what you guys do. I'm re-examining some of my own views because of the show, and anyway. I've heard you guys say some things about specifically quantum mechanics that kind of bothered me a bit, if only for the sake of like scientific accuracy in public discourse. I can't say with certainty what sort of implication it has for like macroscopic phenomena in the universe. All the arguments I've seen for, quantum non-determinism affecting macroscopic phenomena are either inconclusive or just flat wrong. Like someone said that, chaotic systems are chaotic because of quantum mechanics. That's very much not true. Someone else.
Sorry, who? Wait, real quick. Don't use someone else's. Use names if it's one of us. If you're asking us to defend what somebody else said on here.
If it's not us, then I don't care. Yeah. What is it that we said that you have an issue with?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, my bad. So Jimmy at one point, and I'm trying to remember exactly the conversation. It was something about the cosmic microwave background, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like at one, if you don't remember, just your
I'm sorry. Wait, Ben. Do you know what I said, or are you trying to remember what you think I said? Are you calling in with the thing I said, or if I'm remembering the conversation right?
Yeah, it's kind of more the second one.
I'll let you present it, but next time go find the thing and write it down, because right now you're basically saying, hey, I might be wrong. I don't remember, but I'm hoping you remember, despite the fact that you do hundreds of calls a year. I'm hoping you remember a specific one where I'm saying you either were wrong or slipped up, and I'm hoping you remember your exact phrasing. Go ahead, but holy crap, I don't think you'd want to be on the other side of this call at being asked to defend something on the basis of somebody who's not even confident they remember it right.
That's fair. My apologies. I should have prepared better for this. maybe I can rephrase it in a way that's less accusatory. Or more generalized. It seems as though you guys are under the impression that there is a deterministic element to quantum mechanics and quantum mechanical perceived randomness. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
I don't know whether it is or not. I have been told by people who do understand quantum physics very well that we don't know whether or not true randomness is, or whether or not randomness is true randomness, and whether or not it is a, I think they were making it simpler for someone like me to understand, but whether or not something is actually non-random, but it appears fundamentally random in any way we could conceivably try to figure it out.
Okay. Well, that's kind of what I had called in to talk. Oh, go ahead.
Also, don't do the you guys. Jimmy and I aren't a hive mind. I don't know what Jimmy knows or understands about quantum mechanics. I barely know what I know or understand about quantum mechanics. And I've sat down and was friends with the guy who had the office next to Weinberg and who wrote the quantum mechanics book that he's used at the University of Texas as a textbook, and had multiple conversations with him. And I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So don't try and lump it together. You got to be specific. So what I have said is that people who suggest that quantum indeterminacy violates the laws of logic, what I've flatly pointed out to those people is they're monumentally wrong, because identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle are not violated by quantum indeterminacy, because that is still a set. Something's either indeterminate or it's not.
So now, Ben, you called in with what the note you gave the screener was absolute determinism is false. I don't know that I've ever used the phrase absolute determinism on the channel.
I don't know if anybody has.
Yeah, I have only said that determinism makes a lot of sense to me, and I find myself most aligned with it. I wouldn't necessarily say, it's kind of one of those things where it's, I don't know. I know that I don't know enough to say it is a fact that the universe is deterministic. However, every time you break everything down into experiments, it does seem likely to me that if you built a sufficiently advanced computer, obviously you couldn't literally build it because of entropy, but a fundamentally advanced computer with all of the elements programmed in, knowing everything about the universe, could tell you what follows the current moment. That makes sense to me. What is the difference between that and absolute determinism?
I think I agree that if you were able to build a sufficiently complex computer, that you could capture.
Great. What is the? But the question is, what's the difference between that and absolute determinism, or is there a difference?
So I'm saying that I would consider that if you can capture all of the information of every point in space and time in the universe in a simulation or whatever, and replicate it over and over again, given the same conditions and mechanisms, I would say that is absolute determinism. However, I don't think that is the case, or I am convinced that the scientific consensus is more or less that is not the case for the universe at all scales.
Okay.
So the thing you're calling absolute determinism is something that I've always heard and referred to as hard determinism.
Or total determinism.
Okay.
I've heard that one too.
So what's your background, Ben, with quantum mechanics?
So I have in the past been a physics major. I was originally, I switched my major a few times in college, but I settled on a Bachelor of Arts in Theoretical Physics. I did not make it through my degree program because of some mental health concerns and some family health emergencies. But I have studied quantum mechanics in school and also on my own through educational channels like Crash Course, SciShow, Khan Academy, all of those. And I'm not super well versed on the math. I mean, I've taken like up through vector calculus and diffie-q, but like I definitely don't know the math of like statistical mechanics and stuff like that. So
Ben, are you
I'm
fundamentally
definitely not.
are you familiar with the concept that scientific consensus is not the same as saying most scientists believe? Just yes or no, please.
I'm gonna say no
Okay.
because I'm not sure what you.
Okay. So if most scientists believe that chocolate ice cream is the best flavor ice cream, does that mean that scientific consensus is that chocolate ice cream is the best flavor ice cream?
Oh, I see what you're saying. No.
Correct. So when you say you are convinced that most scientists do not believe the universe is deterministic, which, by the way, this as a conversation doesn't matter as much as whether or not it appears we have free will. And even that conversation is not important. It's just kind of fun because whether we have it or not, we have the illusion of it at least. And there's no fundamental difference. Do you believe that it is the scientific consensus or the opinion held by most scientists that we have free will?
I don't believe there is a scientific consensus.
Correct.
Or
Cool.
okay.
In fact, there isn't a scientific consensus. I don't believe. Feel free if somebody has something to show me. If I'm,
There couldn't
you
be.
can't test determinism. There can't be
Actually,
a scientific.
No.
actually,
There may well be a scientific consensus that, at a minimum, soft determinism is true. Well, I thought you were going to say that there's not a scientific consensus on free will, which, of course, there's not, because that's not a subject that isn't. You can't investigate free will.
Yeah.
In order to get past this, there's a compatibilist view that free will is compatible or not incompatible with determinism is very tight. But whether or not there's a scientific consensus, even on soft determinism or hard determinism, I'm not even convinced that that's the case. I just can't rule it out yet.
I'm not aware of that being possible because things like whether or not quantum mechanics contains randomness or sufficiently advanced to a point to beyond comprehension, whichever one that is correct, gets close to the same thing as unfalsifiability of God. Mysterious
This is the
ways.
closest. This is the closest I'm going to come to citing a person over evidence. So my friend, who's now dead, unfortunately, Mark Lowy, who wrote that tech book, he and I had a conversation about an aspect of this, which was I was in my, I don't know, pedestrian exploration of being an obsessive learner, was trying to figure out, because as somebody who's written code, you know that every random number generator in every computer is a pseudo random thing. There's no, and so it became a philosophical discussion about, is there true randomness at all, or is it merely a pattern that we are unable to detect? And right down to things like pi and phi and irrational numbers and those things where you've got repeating. Is there a pattern that we're just not able to detect? And it's because our understanding of mathematics is incomplete and may forever be incomplete. It would seem that it would forever be incomplete. So yeah, I don't even know if there can be scientific consensus on that. But Ben, did we disabuse you that we're complete idiots?
I definitely don't think you guys are complete idiots, but I actually had an argument regarding.
Cool.
Basically, my claim would be that if, in fact, quantum mechanics were to be deterministic or not non-deterministic, then our understanding of quantum mechanics, the consensus on the understanding of quantum mechanics would be incorrect.
Ben, I don't know. And so here's what I'm going to tell you. We will have Dr. Aron Ra back, almost certainly. I like him a lot. I hope he's on this channel at least once a month. And if he wants to, I'll probably be talking to him about, as we're launching new shows and stuff, I like having scientists who know the shit. The thing
I hope he's not watching right now, because he's probably clawing his eyeballs out.
Yeah.
I can't watch this.
They're both wrong. They both suck at this. All sides are terrible.
He's probably
Ben,
right.
Call Dr. Aron Ra.
Oh, okay.
Cool. I don't know that he's a determinist, by the way. I'm saying present him with the statement you just said and tell him whether or not he thinks that it is sound, or let him.
And the best way for you to find out when to call Dr. Aron Ra is to like and subscribe to the line right now and to support us on there. And you'll get notifications about who's coming on the show when, because I've had Aron on my show. He's been on Skeptalk with Gutsick Gibbon. There's no telling which show he's likely to show up on. Could even be a Sunday show. As a matter of fact, Jimmy and I were talking about potentially having him on a Sunday show at some point in the near future when schedules permit. So you may be able to call in and talk to an actual physicist about your physics-related curiosities.
And a really good one. A really he's the type of smart where I can feel myself getting jealous and a little resentful. But I've trained myself to recognize that as you should keep this person close and not be a dick about them being smarter than you.
Yeah. I'd like answers to questions sometimes.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. You got anything else?
It sounds like this conversation has gone as far as it can go here. So I
agree.
Thank you guys for your time. Matt, that was an excellent transition. Have a good one.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Oh, and Jimmy, go fuck yourself.
Thanks, buddy.
There you go. Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm the worst of all the hosts on the line at actually asking for and soliciting donations or anything else. This last Wednesday on the Hang Up, I have a $10 super chat threshold for getting questions through to the end, just because there's a lot of people that watch and it's too much, and we didn't want to sit here for 4 hours doing shows. But we set that to $5 this last Wednesday, and participation went up noticeably, and that's what I care about, is the participation, the interaction, which means the more people were getting answers to their questions. We're not going to do that yet on a permanent level, but there's going to be a number of shows coming up where I might do something like that. Like I came on without a co-host. It's an AMA sort of environment. We're going to do more rapid fire stuff, get some super chat stuff in there, because the Sunday show is your other big opportunity to interact with me and Jimmy. And of course, we don't do super chats on the show unless you are someone like Seth, who drops an incredibly generous and heartfelt, I'm still broken up, heartfelt donation. And then we'll mention that. And by the way, there's a number of other things coming, including some products. And we don't have all the details yet, but I've been excited because in addition to the go fuck yourself thing, we're using YGH for something. YGH is, of course, your gay homie, which makes me laugh. Like,
me too.
It's an everyday thing now that the transphobes and haters find somewhere. They either go to one of my YouTube videos to try to put a comment in there or whatever else. And on the one hand, when somebody's like, "Oh, Matt, I hear you're gay now," or "You're gay, homie," it's just a kind of lazy attempt on their part to toss out an insult that's not an insult, and to misgender my partner.
Yeah.
And that would frustrate me if it weren't for the fact that it's so absolutely funny and laughable at this point. And so, cool.
There is a
Whatever.
temptation by, like, I'm always tempted when someone says something like that to me, because I am queer. So that especially doesn't bother me. Just to be like, prove it, kiss me like a man. But you shouldn't say that to strangers. They might be being bigots, but, yeah, no, I'm excited for that. Also, I've already teased it elsewhere, but it won't be launching this next Sunday, but the Sunday after, you will be able, it might launch on a different show earlier than that, but if Matt and I do a show together before that, but there will be a wine tumbler coming. For those of you who like a wine tumbler, that will read, "You're on the wine" with Jimmy and Matt. I love that pun. The moment I thought of it, I was like, that's merch. It's happening. It has to happen.
I hate wine, but I want one. And I know I hate wine, generally speaking, but I love that. And I will sit here and drink other things out of it.
Yeah, I literally don't. And so we're probably going to have to do variations so some people could drink wine out of it. Like, there's probably going to have to be a "You're on the wine" with Shannon and Paul. That one makes sense. Because we're both wine posers up here. That's the one.
Instead of it going on a cup, we'll put it on a coffee table you can order.
That's right. Yeah. We can order it from me. Will not be cheap, though, I promise you. I don't have time to make coffee tables these days. Hopefully soon. Anyway, we should move on. Herb from Virginia says that, first of all, is it Herb? Is that how to pronounce it?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is.
Awesome. Well, Herb, welcome to the show. You can prove to us that there's a higher intelligence. And I'd start, I guess, by asking higher intelligence than what?
Well, like me and my best friend was talking a couple of days ago. He knew that I've been following you guys. I've been sharing you guys' videos and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm an atheist. And then I started listening to Aron, your boy, Aron Ra.
Okay.
I was like, I don't think I'm smart enough to be an atheist, but I'm not stupid enough to be a Christian, because my dad, he's a preacher. He got his own church and everything out there in Mississippi. But he told me, he's like, why don't you just believe in all the gods? I was like, man, tell the truth, that kind of makes more sense, because I do a lot of reading, like especially about astrology. I started, I'm a Gemini. My best friend, he's an Aquarius. I'm like, why this man get more girls than me and stuff? I'm smarter than him. I treat girls better than him. And I know Matt. He's an Aries. I don't know what you are, but I feel like
it doesn't matter because astrology is bullshit.
No, wait, actually, before we do that, I do want to, Herb, if you believe in astrology and you've seen me on this channel without Googling anything, you have an assessment of my personality, you're saying it makes sense that you are one thing and your friend's another. So just tell me what I am. You don't have to look it up. You should, if this works, it works in reverse. You should be able to look at me.
Well, if I would have guessed, then you'll be a Leo. I don't know.
And I'm not. And I'm not. I'm a Pisces. You had a 1 in 12 chance of guessing, but I'm technically a Pisces. And now a ton of people at home who believe in astrology, when they watch this later, are going to go, oh, that was going to be my second guess, because that's always what they do. Because fundamentally, astrology, anybody can be anything. And you can say you're not smart enough to be, no, you don't have to be smart to be an atheist. Trust me, I know plenty of stupid ones. You don't even need to be smart to be a skeptic. All you have to do is go, I will not accept something until there's good reason to accept it. Astrology not only does not have good reason, it runs off of something called the Barnum effect. Everybody's, basically, when you start with the conclusion that I am a Leo or I am a Capricorn, and then you read your horoscope, you see the things in there that apply and you go, yep, that's me. And the things that don't apply, you either dismiss it or you pretend, oh, well, now actually it's not as though only my star sign. We have to talk about my moon rising and my ba 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 ba, which is the other stupid thing that astrology has to do. It literally makes anybody capable of being everybody.
Have you got a link to the video? We did this. You paid for horoscopes for us and had Seth read this stuff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're talking to me. Yeah, that's right. I think it's currently unlisted, but I'll get it back to public because that's a good one. Matt Owen and I paid a professional astrologer to write our horoscopes, and basically we then had Seth read them out and see if we could figure out whose was whose, and we didn't. We failed, and we made a real attempt to really go, that one sounds the most like me. This one sounds the most like me. It does not, it doesn't work. And my favorite astrology,
stuff like that. Like you got to look at other people like born under your sign and people that live like probably like the same life as you live.
Herb. Astrology can be debunked. Astrology can be proven false with one word. With one word.
What's that word?
Twins. Do twins have the exact same life?
Yeah.
No, they don't. No, they fucking don't. No, they don't have the same life. It's ridiculous. This isn't a matter of smart or dumb. If you're sitting around figuring out why is somebody getting more girls than you, it's not a smart or dumb thing. It's not an astrology thing. It may be that you're too busy worried about why somebody's getting more girls than you than working on whether or not you can be a reasonable and provide the things or whatever. It could be a million different reasons. But you called in to say you can prove there's a higher intelligence. Why the fuck are we talking about something as stupid as astrology? Prove there's a higher
Probably my
intelligence.
fault.
Because, like I said, everything that we don't understand, that's it. Like I said, we go to space and we don't know the end of the whole universe. Maybe there's a more universe.
You said you had a proof of a higher intelligence. This is the God of the gaps. No, this isn't. All you're saying is we don't know, therefore God, or therefore higher intelligence. That's just called God of the gaps.
You didn't even get that far. All you said, everything we don't understand. What is your proof of a God? Or a higher intelligence?
I said God with the S. God with the S.
I don't care about you. You said you had proof of a higher intelligence. What's the proof?
Well, I can tell you another proof too, though.
You haven't told me one yet.
Right?
You haven't told me one
Y'all
yet. Tell me one.
Y'all didn't want to accept the astrology one. Y'all didn't accept that one.
No.
It's not a matter of accept. Astrology is bullshit. Astrology is bullshit. And even if astrology were real and true, that doesn't prove a higher intelligence. Are you going to present a proof of a higher intelligence or not?
You know what's crazy, man? I can tell if somebody look like Jamie Foxx. I'd be like, man, you a Sagittarius, ain't you? You'd be like, yeah.
No, you can't. No,
you're so full of shit, Herb. You are so full of shit. And now you're being a liar because I'm asking you to demonstrate the thing that you said you could demonstrate. Keep trying to talk over me. See how fucking well that goes for you, Herb. Are you going to demonstrate that you have evidence or an argument for a higher intelligence or not?
I'm telling you right now.
Herb, you just said you can just look at somebody who looks...
Tell me.
Sorry, I want to debunk the thing he said a minute ago. You said you can just look at someone, and if they look like Jamie Foxx, you can go, they're a Sagittarius, and you're right. You literally looked at me. Shut up. You looked at me, and I asked you what sign I was. You guessed Leo. My birthday is March 5th. Were you correct or incorrect when you said Leo?
You have some Leo traits, though.
No,
I guarantee
shut up. Everybody has Leo traits. I'm not impressed by birthday racism, which is all astrology is.
No. Fucking hang up. He's just sitting there laughing. You're right.
No, bro. Don't
You're right.
Up, bro.
You're right, Herb. This is about smarts.
Yeah, you might not be smart enough. Fuck off. Fucking astrology.
I tried. It's not about smarts. But if you're just going to sit there and laugh and think you can look at somebody and tell what their star sign is, you do realize that we can put that to the test. You do realize that the James Ramsey Educational Foundation for years would have paid you $1 million to prove that you can do what you claim to do, but you can't do it, and you fucking know it. You know you can't do it. You just failed to do it with Jimmy right here. Plus, astrology has been repeatedly tested and repeatedly failed. You don't know anything about the Barnum effect. You don't know anything about astrology. You don't know anything about what it would take to demonstrate the truth of a higher intelligence. And you're too worried about whether or not you're getting some fucking trim.
Let's see. What are Leo traits?
Sorry if that's offensive. I never thought about whether or not that might be offensive.
The word trim? I don't think so. I don't know.
I don't know. If it is, I retract that and put it back into getting laid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Full of life.
I genuinely don't know the context, so that's why I'm nervous about. Did I just use something that's offensive?
Sure. Here are some personality traits. If somebody here doesn't have at least one of these, let us know in the chat. Are you full of life? Do you command the spotlight? Do you ever inspire others? Are you independent-minded? Are you independent-minded? Are you independent-minded? That's a Leo trait. Are you who the fuck would say they are not independent? I have met 1 million people who have said, I'm very independent-minded. How many people have you ever met, Matt, that called themselves dependent-minded? Any? Like 2, maybe.
I think there are some people who have become convinced that they're like, because they're codependent and they get these issues or whatever else, that they would say that they're not independent minded. But generally speaking, yeah.
Okay. Here's another one. Fun to be around.
I'm not fun to be around.
That's a Leo trait. I have tons of fun being around you. Let's see. Positive self and body image crusaders of the zodiac. They're charming. They have a big heart. They have a healthy work life. Remember, you don't have to have all of these, just one, and then you have a Leo trait. or as he said, you've got Leo traits though, which is funny because again, I'm not a Leo. So even if I said most of these describe me, because they describe most people, here are some bad personality traits though. Do you have too much self-confidence? Are you bold? Do you take charge too often? And sometimes that manifests in a problematic way. Are you ever self-focused to a fault? Are you ever vain? Are you ever domineering? Do you ever lack self-awareness? Remember, just one and you've got a Leo trait.
Do you feel tired, run down, listless? Do you poop out at parties? I got some Vitamita Vegemin for you.
It's really funny because there's a lot of like, basically the reason he guessed Leo is a lot of it focuses on basically being full of yourself, being a leader, that's what a lot of this says. So he guessed the thing that maybe this is what the Leo focuses on more than any of the others that seem to match with me, but I'm not. I'm literally not a Leo. So it doesn't work in reverse. And guess what? There are lots of people who aren't Leos who are public figures who have no problem talking to people, who prefer to be the leader in a room of people, prefer to be the center of attention when in a room of people. However, I prefer to just not be in a room of people. The whole thing, astrology is so, it makes me embarrassed that it is the thing that's growing as other types of theism are shrinking, because it is still fundamentally, at the end of the day, a method of taking an arbitrary trait and telling people that on that trait, you can judge other people. You can split other people into groups. You can have an opinion on whether or not this is the one I always, whenever I bring up, it is a system of discrimination. And I'm talking to somebody who believes in it. No, it's not. It's harmless. It's just fun. This. And I go, okay, if I tell you my friend is a Leo and my other friend is a Capricorn, do you now have an opinion on how well they would do as romantic partners? And almost 90% of the time, they say yes. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, technically, because that trait with this trait. So you have fundamentally on an arbitrary thing, when a person is born, decided who people are, who they're compatible with. And then people will use it as an excuse. I'm sorry that I was crazy last week. You have to understand, Venus was in retrograde and I'm a Sagittarius. Fuck you in your fucking face. You use it as a shield to dodge responsibility, and you use it as a method of grouping people, othering people, judging people, dividing people. Are we currently putting people into camps? Are we currently committing Capricorn genocide? No. Is our world stupid enough with stupid enough people that you could see that religion form into something more? Form into something more like a hostile religion, where that actually is the case? I do not put humans above that. Arguably, they've already done shit like that in the past. So, fucking, I have no fucking patience for people who are like, it's just good fun though. It's a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Or not corporation, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that preys on gullible people. It is not harmless, and you paying to support it is, at minimum, participating in a harmful thing. Now,
that's wild.
Capitalism, no ethical consumption, sure, we can all talk about that, but you can also avoid the things that are obvious. If you buy Chick-fil-A, I don't really care that much. If you bought Chick-fil-A and they required you to carry a God hates queers sign out of the shop, that'd be something else entirely.
But I won't buy Chick-fil-A.
I don't
buy Chick-fil-A. I don't go to Whataburger. Any number of things, but it's and I'm not doing any damage to them. It's just there's things I don't feel like supporting. But it's really frustrating because I'm always hoping that somebody's going to call in and say, hey, here's what I believe and why. And so in the case of Herb, we've got someone who believes there is a higher intelligence. And yet Herb's justification for higher intelligence is that he has fallen for astrology, which demonstrates zero higher intelligence anywhere in that discussion or outside of it. At most, it's a normal intelligence. And it's also, when you start talking about, hey, I believe in a higher intelligence, cool. And you started off by asking, I almost wish you hadn't. I mean, don't get me wrong, I got your back, and I was thinking exactly the same thing. Like, let's start by saying, higher than what? What is it we're talking about? Because that's the Weasley word stuff that ends up happening, where people are like, oh, don't you believe in a higher power? Well, higher than what? Me personally? And in what measurement? Because there are people who are smarter than me. There are people who can run faster than me. Everybody can run faster than me. What's your criteria for, don't you think that there's something greater than you, Matt? Yeah, I think there's loads of things greater than me. Plus, one of the most important things that I think is greater than me is us. And that's why I'm a humanist. But when you say that you have a way, and I get it, somebody out there, I already dealt with super pedantic boy earlier before the show. Somebody out there is like, oh, proof is only a mathematical and logical concept. Proof isn't what happens in science. Yes, I understand the difference between proof as a mathematical proof or a logical proof, and that science runs by induction and inference and all. Yes, I know all that. But colloquially, as the caller demonstrated, when people think they can demonstrate that something is true or reasonable to believe that it is true, they will use the word proof colloquially. And I'm okay with that, but especially because we establish a burden of proof. And the burden of proof is a phrase that isn't tied to mathematics or logic. It is 100% a colloquialism about you need to establish the veracity and reliability and reasonableness of what you're saying. When you go into a courtroom, one side has the burden of proof. This complete super pedantic jackass on Twitter, who proudly announced to the world that he understands this stuff better than I do, tried to suggest that I shouldn't be using the term burden of proof because proof only applies in mathematics and logic, as if he's never watched anybody step into a courtroom and fails to understand the burden of proof there. It's bizarre. I want you to call in, and I want you to say, here's what I believe and why. But you got to be ready. You got to. We're going to ask questions because we're trying to get to the truth of this, or at least an understanding of it. And if you say, "Oh, there's a higher power or a higher intelligence," and your proof is that you are gullible enough to buy into astrology because somebody's getting laid more often than you, that is garbage argument, start to finish. I mean, there's nothing there there's nothing in there that's even an argument. And it's not, I'm going to stick by what I said and what I've always said. It's not merely a matter of smarts or dumb or anything else. There are plenty of incredibly stupid people who are atheists, and there's a ton of fucking stupid atheists. Yeah. And there are a ton of brilliant people who believe in some religion. Let me do this little story, and then we'll get right to the next caller. There is a guy who I'm not going to name. He's got a YouTube channel. I watch his content constantly. Like every day, every couple days, whenever there's a new video, I'm watching it. We have some very similar interests. The guy is brilliant and really good at the science. And Forrest knows who I'm talking about. We both have mad respect for this guy. He's genuinely one of the nicest people you'll ever, watch. And while I was watching him, I was like, I bet this guy's a Mormon. It was something about, and it's the reason why people talk about a vibe or a feeling. There's some ineffable quality that people present when you listen to them talk long enough. Not just about what they say, but what they don't say and how they say it and how things are presented, where you go, I bet this guy's a Mormon. And now we went and looked, and of course, I shouldn't say of course, but of course I was right. He's absolutely a Mormon. And now all I want to do is reach out and contact this guy and say, hey, look, here's who I am, but this is not an ambush. I don't want to get you on a show. I'm not trying to have a debate with you. Completely off the record. Completely just two dudes having a conversation. I genuinely don't understand how someone as smart as you, who understands and knows evolution and science as much as you, who is as good as you are on these subjects, can also have bought into one of the most obviously ridiculous religious things in the history of the world, so much so that there's a musical mocking it, which a musical I love.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
I Jimmy and I were talking about this on the phone yesterday. I haven't stopped thinking about it. I'm going to find a way to have a conversation with this person if I have to go visit them in person and just say, would you be willing to sit down and have a talk with me? Because that's all I want. I just want to, I got to understand because like the last caller, even though it shouldn't be about smarts, we have this intuition that it is. And here's someone who I know is smart, who absolutely buys something incredibly stupid.
Yeah. That's how I feel about Mark Rober, which is not the person he's talking about. I already saw people were guessing.
It's not Mark.
I think Mark Rober is one of the most gifted scientific communicators ever. And he's charming in a way that makes you want to learn more. Like he's charming in his presentation. And he does. He has that quality, that always smile, the pain you can see behind the eyes, and yet it looks so happy. He has that more, and that's been such a conflict for me over the years. So I'm like, I like this guy so much, but I can't stand knowing that 10% of these $1 million sponsorships he's getting are going to a church that fights against my rights. I can't bring that to bear. Lindsey Sterling, same thing. I stopped, I wanted to go to her concerts and stuff, and I just can't, because I can't give 10% in an indirect way to the Mormon church if I know for sure. I'm sure I do it every day. I'm sure I've bought things off Amazon that I didn't know the seller was a Mormon, but when it's facing you in the face, it's really tough. Yes, I am the Mormon that Matt's talking about, actually. This caller has called in a couple times with the same thing. I want to get through. We do have another theist waiting in Virginia. Please wait for a moment, because I just need to know what this note even means. So, first of all, in the U.S., is it Olie or Ole? How shall I pronounce your name?
It's neither. It's Olie.
Olie? Oh, is it O-N-E? Olie. Okay. Olie.
You can say either works. I'm not too picky. I know what you mean.
Is it kind of like Ollie, but Olie?
It's Scandinavian. Maybe if I put
it's like
Y
Olie
at the end, it would be easier to say.
So it's like Olie Anderson, like Arn's brother.
Olie.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Got it. All right. The note just says here that you are calling to basically defend a secular belief in the concept of God.
Yes, that's true. And I think I'm going to piss off people on both sides here today, but I think it's worth having. But before we get into that, I just wanted to say thank you for giving me the chance to come on the show. Both of you guys have been very influential throughout my life, and it's a great honor to speak to you.
Sure. Great. It's not going to help
enough.
But go ahead.
You'll see a little bit more. So maybe it will help if I explain where I fall on the atheist-theist spectrum, right? So I grew up in a very religious town, like so religious that they actually have a cross like lit up.
Olie, I'm actually going to suggest to you that this won't help. What your background is doesn't matter. And I'm doing this both for efficiency and because I've done the show a million times. I'm not meaning to be rude. Your background story doesn't matter. Either what you are saying is valid and sound or it isn't, and it won't matter whether or not you came from a religious background.
Okay.
I'd rather just hear,
fair.
Let's maybe start here then, if this is easier for you, if I direct. Are you suggesting that there is a significant difference between the concept of believing in God? Sorry, I shouldn't have used the word concept there. Is there a significant difference to you between believing in God and believing in the concept of God?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
what is that difference?
I don't want to get too caught up in definitions and go Jordan Peterson now.
No. Jordan Peterson does not.
I just need you to tell me what it is you're advocating for and why you're advocating for it.
But also, I want to reject what you just said. Invoking Jordan Peterson as a clarifying definitions are important. Jordan Peterson hides behind non-clarification. So if you're right, you're going to piss off people on both sides. If you're going to suggest that my asking you to describe the difference between believing in God and believing in the concept of God is my being Jordan Peterson-esque, you're correct that would piss me off. So now describe what the difference between believing in God and believing in the concept of God is.
Okay. So this is where I piss off the theist camp. I don't believe that the concept or even the idea of God is an anthropomorphic man in the sky that hates gay people. That's
Great.
not what
Could you
I'm here to
answer
talk
my
about.
question, though? Not the question you want to answer.
So what is the difference between the concept of God and God itself, right?
No. What is the difference between believing in God and believing in the concept of God?
I would say that's okay. That's a difficult thing to pin me down on, but I see what you're doing, and I see why you're doing it, and I understand
because
that. So
it's the
I don't need
thing
you
you're
to tell us
calling.
what you see and what you don't see. Are you going to present what you fucking believe and why, or are you going to sit here and keep going on about how now you see what we're doing? I don't have all day.
Okay, let me just be clear. I'll be clear. What I'm advocating for is an Eastern understanding of God, not a Western understanding of God. In that, in the Eastern theology, it's more in line with something called animism, and this is something that is fundamentally different than Abrahamic belief, for example. And so, if you were to ask someone in the East about their belief in God, they would say that God is in all things, and it's
okay. Olie, I've now muted you. Despite what you may think, despite the fact that I've been hosting shows for 20 years and have been studying this stuff for my entire life, I don't need a lecture from you on what animism is. I don't need a lecture from you on Eastern theology. I need you to say, here's the God concept I'm advocating for and why I think it's true. That's all. Anything else, and I'm moving on, because I swear I am completely, forever unimpressed with people who drone on because they think they've read or understood more than somebody else and have come to some better understanding. What do you believe and why should we believe it? That's it. That's all I give a fuck about. Go.
okay. So I believe that God is in all things. I don't believe in a spiritual godlike figure. In fact, I don't believe in an afterlife. And I believe this because everything, God, this is going to sound so stupid. Just bear with me, Matt. I'm not here to piss you off.
It's too late.
The idea of God being matter itself is very consistent with how biology actually works. Okay? So the thoughts that are in your head right now are basically just chemicals, chemical reactions, biochemical reactions.
Okay, I'm muting you again.
This is
and
bad.
This next time when I unmute you, it will be the last time that I unmute you. You said, finally, what you believe. God is in all things. That still doesn't tell me what you mean by God, just that you're convinced that God is in all things. And then you said, because, which is perfect. I believe God is in all things because, and then instead of giving me the because, instead of giving me the why, you went on to talk about everything is such and such, and then you finished, you left half a sentence there and then went on to another sentence that had something to do with consistent how biology works, and there was a middle interruption there where you said you weren't trying to piss me off. Too fucking late, Olie. You believe God is in all things. When I unmute you, I'd like for you to either say, what do you mean by God, as the next thing, or why you believe God is in all things. And if you can't do that, I'm done. Try it again. Which one are you going with? Defining the God?
Okay.
Or why?
God, what I believe is matter itself. God is in all things because all things are made of the same thing.
Okay. Stop.
Just equivocation.
Is this pair of glasses in my hand made of matter?
Yes, of course.
Is it God?
Yes. Yes, it is.
What about these glasses deserves the added description of God? What does the God description add to glasses that we were missing?
What it adds is that the idea that the glass and you are separate things is an illusion itself.
No, the glasses and me are separate things. That's observable and demonstrable. The fact that we may or may not be connected in some way does not change the fact that we are, from an identity standpoint, separate things. Just like you and I are separate things. We are not the same thing. The error in thinking that we are connected means that you get to things like, oh, we've got some kind of shared consciousness or global consciousness. No, we fucking don't.
Yeah, by the way, Olie, you are straight up either lying or mistaken when you are sitting here trying to defend that, based on what you started with, that the Eastern concept of God is fundamentally secular, and that they basically just take something like all things are matter, so let's just call matter God. You're made of matter. The glasses are made of matter. So look at the commonality. To reduce all Eastern religion to that, to take away what are supernatural claims amongst many of them, and to speak for them, is at best dishonest. It may be much worse, but we'll just go with at best dishonest. What an absurd... You're just sitting here and going, I'm an atheist. Here's the God I believe in. So already fundamentally stupid.
Under Olie's definition, you know what else is God? My penis and my poop.
No, they're the same thing, by the way, your penis and poop.
And they're the same thing.
Yep.
You have managed to think yourself into ridiculousness. The God label carries with it certain baggage. And when you take the God label and apply it in this sort of Spinoza's God extended to pantheism, panentheism, it's all God, we're all God, you're no longer talking about reality. You are at best talking about useless metaphors that don't add anything. Your belief that my glasses are God does not add anything true and useful to the understanding of my glasses.
By the way, you're the Jordan Peterson here.
Well, God is that which necessitates our belief, and of all things, that is what God is.
I can see where you guys are coming from in that way, and that was a great Jordan Peterson impersonation.
You're just trying to flatter me now, trying to win me back.
Okay.
Olie, this isn't fundamentally meaningful. If you believe in a God, you're not an atheist. Start there. If you think you are an atheist because your definition of God isn't godlike, the problem is with your definition and how you're using the term. You're committing what I think is an equivocation fallacy, where you have a special, but it's a special definition, though other people do it too, of God, and then you want to interact with atheism and theism conceptually, argumentatively, with that special definition that no one, including most people within the Eastern religions that you are referring to, who would say they believe in a God, would actually accept.
If you have a useless definition of God, I really don't need it. And this one is useless because you've now basically defined God as everything. God is this grain of sand. It's this toenail clipping. It's this paramecium. It's this, both the lenses of my glasses and the frames of my glasses are God, and the nose rests of my glasses are God, and the earpiece thing and the spring and that screw, that's God, and each atom within those things is a God, and every possible configuration of anything and everything, and there is no separate thing. The notion that you are separate from me is an illusion. No, it's not. We're separated, and the only way that we could actually connect to even communicate that required you using other things that are real. This everything's God is, if everything is God, then God is now a completely useless term. The value in life has to do with supply and demand, but also in our desires. If you go out and you look at a beautiful sunset, I saw a gorgeous sunset last night. It's pretty because it's not there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If the sky were static and the same colors would be there all the time, part of its beauty would be diminished. Because what we really like is surprises, change. We hate change, but we love change. It's the good change that we like. Seeing a gorgeous sunset. If you could see it all day, every day, then all of a sudden, the cloudy sky that you might not think is beautiful now, which I think is beautiful, all of a sudden has more value and becomes more beautiful. One of those terrifying green colored storms that come rolling in that are terrifying to people, and for very good reason they're terrifying, but the color and the shape of the clouds and the way the air starts to smell and everything else, all of those things, it's the change from the norm that makes it valuable. If life goes on forever, each day is less valuable. That's what this is. When you have this notion, well, I believe in a God and it's just all God. Well, congratulations. You now have a useless proposition that adds nothing beneficial to our understanding of anything and diminishes from everything. And meanwhile, all you're really saying is, here's what I think. There's no way to demonstrate that this is true in any way. And as a matter of fact, you are undercutting the very concept of truth by making it about what you think. It's cool that you got high one day and you read some Eastern philosophy and was like, whoa, dude, what if it's all like that? Yeah, cool. But some of us care about reality, and some of us care more about whether an idea is true than if it's beneficial. Look at Aron Ra. In her I'm now a Christian thing, there's nothing at all about her believing in God, about an argument for her believing in God, about evidence for her believing in God. There's nothing about her even redefining God in this sloppy way that you'd like to redefine God to make it more useful. It's all about she finds Christianity useful for combating her nihilistic thoughts, woke ideology, and Islamism. It is a practical assessment where she's now joined the club du jour of I'm going to act as a Christian and be a Christian. Now, it's possible that she's become convinced of the divinity of Jesus Christ and the need for salvation and has given herself over to it, but you didn't hear any of that in any of her message. Her I'm now a Christian doesn't line up with any Christian I'm now a Christian message that anybody comprehends, and that is consistent with what you'd find in any Catholic, Baptist, Protestant, in a whatever church. No Mormon's going to say anything like that. The person I was talking about talked about how they were baptized into the Church of Latter-day Saints, and it's the greatest thing that ever happened to them. And I'm still baffled as to how they can believe this stuff. But even in just one little snippet where they say they're Mormon, they say more about the belief, more about what they value than Ayan did at all. And when Ayan talks about atheism, what does she say? It's a doctrine. No, it's fucking not. That she chose. No, you didn't. If you think you did, that tells us a lot about why you're really confused. What you should have chosen was secular humanism, and you should have chosen to learn some of that. But secular humanism wasn't going to put up with your right-wing tendencies, and the atheist community that relies on promoting secular humanism wasn't going to keep platforming you after you kept spewing out your right-wing tendencies and your right-wing thought tank stuff and your PragerU videos. So I can't tell you who is or isn't a true Christian, but I can tell you that that message of why I'm now a Christian has nothing in it about Christianity as a doctrine, as a belief system. It is nothing but, here's the useful club I joined.
Yeah. If he hadn't hung up, and I've already forgotten the name because again I don't keep these things in my
Olie.
Olie, yeah, Olie. or Olie, right? Something like that.
Olie, not Anderson, but yeah.
Yeah. Olie, the metaphor, the thing I was going to bring to you is, here's the metaphor. I have two glasses. Both are filled with water. One is filled with liquid water and one is filled with solid water. There is a time, if I'm describing this one, colloquially we know water just as its liquid state, where adding the word ice would enhance the conversation. For me to say, this glass has ice in it as opposed to water, even though that's correct. When, in what conversation would your matter conversation, would it enhance anything to say this remote is made of matter and to instead say this remote is made of God? When is that necessary besides entirely made up concepts? Because I can point to the properties of ice and why the distinguishing property is important. I wanted you to describe that. I don't know if you'll call back in to describe that. And then the second thing would be, if all matter is God and God is all things, and it's because matter makes up everything and God then makes up everything, what is antimatter? What are the things made up of antimatter? Are they God?
Anti-God.
Yeah. Yeah, Christians would call it the devil. But what are the things? What are those? Because now we have God is all things because matter is all things, except matter isn't all things. Half of the universe isn't matter. So what is that? Anyway, that was the stuff that, here, we've got Olie back. I'm going to bring him in. Olie, you there? Hello, can you hear me? Olie? Well, it looked like he called back. Olie. And dropped again. I'll give another moment for a reconnect, otherwise we're moving on. But we do have time still. By the way, 6% of 744 of you have voted yes, that you can present a valid and sound argument for God. I would like to prove something. Are we capable of getting frustrated with callers and it turning into an argument? Yes, but what you saw today here was that mostly with self-described atheists. So anybody who says this is a show about yelling at and embarrassing theists, I present to you today's show. But if you just call in, you present your argument, you let us ask questions about it, you answer the questions, and we usually will let you ask questions back, you're going to have a great time. And legitimately, if you have a valid and sound argument for God, Matt and I desperately want to hear it. Legitimately. So call in with that. Those of you who said the 6%, what does that add up to? About 42, though now we've also gone over 700. So 46.2 of you have said that you have a, I don't know who the 0.2 is. If you're that 0.2, call in, that you can present a valid and sound argument for God. I desperately, desperately want to hear it. We're going to try one more time with Olie. Olie, can you hear me this time?
Yes, finally.
Yeah. Okay. Did you hear the questions that I posed, or do you need them restated?
Could you please briefly summarize?
Okay. I have two glasses. They are both filled with water. On the left, it is liquid water. On the right, it is solid water. There are times, because of the difference in property, that it is appropriate to not call the solid water ice. It enhances it. It makes it quicker. There is a clear reason to call the liquid water ice. You have said that matter makes up all things and God makes up all things. So matter is God. When, besides made up concepts or feel good concepts or when would be like the glass of ice, where I can point to the actual properties that distinguish it from just liquid water, or colloquially how we use water, when would be the time to use the word God that would enhance that conversation of matter, would add to it, would define matter further than its own definition? When should we even say God instead of just saying Matt and his glasses are matter?
Jimmy, they are one and the same. They are interchangeable.
You did not. Okay, sorry. Maybe you did answer. I was about to get very annoyed, but you probably did answer. Your answer seems to be there's no difference. You've just decided calling matter God and God matter makes sense because some people have a religious concept of God is everything. This can be a pantheistic thing. And therefore, the everything that you are aware of is matter. Therefore, you could just go into a science class and say, let's talk about the properties of God. And the science class should interpret that as let's talk about the properties of matter, the way that you are doing it, correct?
I see why that has issues. And that's why I said the concepts of God and not God as a.
But you just said they are one and the same. Are they one and the same or not? If you walked into a science class and used your definition of God, would it matter that you said God? Would it be no? We'll even say everyone understands your definition and agrees with it. If you said, "Hey, let's talk about the properties of God," everybody there would interpret that as let's talk about the properties of matter because it's an entirely interchangeable thing. Correct?
No, you're correct that they would not follow.
No, I just said yes. That's not what I said. I said they do follow. Let's assume they all hold the exact same definition of God as you. It would not change in a science class full of people. They would just hear God and think matter. They would use that word the exact same way, the way I might use water and H2O. Okay, great. So on to the second question, because we've already covered why that's a useless equivocation, and we don't need to do it again. If you didn't see that part, you can watch if it was after your call, you can watch that back. Then question number 2 was, if God is everything because God is matter, what is God in relation to antimatter, which makes up more than half of the universe?
They would be the same as well. And maybe my definition of matter wasn't precise enough. You could break it down to the.
You just said God and matter are one and the same. And now you are proving that that's not what you believe. You believe God and everything are one and the same. So anything that is a conceptual everything or a literal everything, because if God is matter and they are one and the same, that means God or that matter is antimatter if God also applies to antimatter. And it doesn't. Matter and antimatter are different things. If God and matter are one and the same, then God is not antimatter. If you believe that God is both matter and antimatter, then the definition of God to you is not matter. And the thing I just did, where you go into the science class and everyone holds the same definition, and it would be a meaningless distinction, you were wrong. Because if you then walked into that class with your new definition that you just said, and said, let's talk about the properties of God, no one in that room would know whether you meant matter or antimatter. This is the point we've been trying to make to you the whole time. You have a broad, abstract concept that you have clearly an emotional attachment to, that you want to make work. You don't even know what it is. And you just, with your two questions you answered, and then your second answer debunked the first one. Go ahead, Olie, if you now have a rebuttal to that or anything else.
Okay, you make an interesting point. So if I say that God is matter, then what of antimatter? And I don't know enough about the physics of antimatter to know what the particles themselves are.
But you know enough about the physics of matter to know that they're God? I doubt it.
No. I'm speaking of the concept of God in that, look, I'd like to make my actual point before we get too caught up on matter and antimatter.
Fine. No. We're not even going to get caught up. Make your actual point. We'll just skip past it, past the fact that we've already proven your concept of God is an equivocation fallacy. We'll get past the point that we've already proven you don't know what your definition of God is. We'll get past the point that we've already proven that your assertion that it is consistent with Eastern religion is also wrong. We'll get past all of those points.
Go
ahead, Matt.
Before Olie does this, because I'm ready to pluck my eyeballs out. Olie, if you were calling in to talk about the concept of Bigfoot, and all I cared about was whether or not Bigfoot was real, why would I pay any attention to the concept of Bigfoot? What does the concept of Bigfoot or the concept of God or the concept of universe farting pixies or the concept of unicorns, what fucking value does that have to any of us if it doesn't point to something that is real?
Okay. So the concept of Bigfoot in that scenario is some like actual like humanoid thing in the woods. And I'm not saying that
No,
the
Olie,
concept of
Olie,
God
stop.
is
Olie, stop. You didn't listen. Olie, stop. You didn't listen. The concept is not an agent. It's not an entity. The concept is not Bigfoot. Bigfoot is the man or whatever out in the woods. The concept is not. Concepts live in your fucking brain. Concepts is your conceptualization of something. What I'm saying is, if your conceptualization of God doesn't point to something that's real, why do I give a fuck?
because it is real, Matt. Everything around you is real.
No, sir.
And
listen, please stop assuming that you're right and I'm wrong, because you're sounding stupid. If there is a God and it exists, then let's discuss the God, because your concept of God or a concept of God is not relevant to God. But if there's not a God and all we're going to talk about is your fucking concept of God, I don't give a fuck. I only care, is there a God that you can demonstrate? Yes or no?
Okay. I don't know if we're going to get anywhere with this
Great.
conversation.
Definitely not. I'm dropping your
Olie.
dumb ass right now. All I did was ask you to back up something, and well, I don't know if we're going to get someplace. What a fucking waste.
That's not the right answer to a yes or no question. Your projection and presumption of how we're going to react if you finally got to the point. Terrible.
I'm sitting here with thousands of people watching right now and tens of thousands of people watching over the next few weeks and perhaps endless people. I'm happy. You want to do a bong rip and talk about how you think God's everywhere? Yeah. Cool. I'll probably listen for a little while and then I'll realize you're not talking about reality. Concepts are not reality. Your concept of God may be really fucking cool, bro. But until you show that your concept points to something that's actually real, it's useless to me. And it's useless to the audience, because this is about your specific God concept. I will never give more than half of a fuck about somebody's esoteric God concept, especially when their esoteric God concept is just another fucking boring retelling of what if God is everything? What if God is in everything? What if everything is God? You haven't even bothered to sit down and think about the ramifications of what you're talking about. And both Jimmy and I specifically said, what does the God label add to this? If this pile of shit is God, what does calling that pile of shit add? What does it communicate? That's what benefit is there? Jimmy tried it with water and hard water. And then there's ice. And then, by the way, there's also ice water, which to anybody, if you say, would you like a glass of ice water? What they're picturing is liquid water with ice in it. They're not picturing. We know enough about the context of language that we're going to infer certain things and we're going to have good understanding. What you're doing, Olie, is taking a God label that comes with thousands of years of baggage tied to various God concepts, Eastern and Western, you prick. And if you're going to just take that and say God is everything, and our question then is, of what use is that? What do I get by having a concept of God that God is everything? I know what your answer is going to be. I know you're going to be, I told you, it means that you and your glasses aren't separate. Yeah, I know you told me, but me and my glasses are separate. Just like the poop is separate from my fucking sandwich that I'm eating. If not, why don't you eat shit?
Yep.
You know this is the case.
I'm going to make a quick correction, though I reject the person's condescending introduction to the correction when they do.
Okay.
you're good at something, but stay in your lane. You don't know what my lane is, but you are correct. I misspoke.
Aw.
Antimatter is only 1% of the universe, less than 1%. Dark matter is more than half of the universe.
We'll get a physicist on to correct us on all this stuff one of these days.
Yeah, as though you stay in your, you shouldn't even mention these things. You shouldn't even. That's to the person who said that, go make your channel and do it better, and never ever mix up those concepts, even when it's relevant to a conversation. Don't you ever fuck it up. Yep. I actually really want to do this one because I think I might have a chance to share a story that happened this week that I think is a really good. I'm glad it happened, and I asked the person if I could share it. So I'm going to start with Millie C. in New York. Millie is a theist with personal experiences that can't be explained by our conventional understanding of material reality. So Millie, go ahead and share what that is. I already know what my first questions are, and I'll see if my story fits this.
Okay. Yeah, of course you can share a story. So I am a theist, but I grew up as pretty hard materialist, specifically like eliminative materialist, that like there is no way you can prove to me that anything exists that isn't material. But I don't know, then I got thinking about about that dumb old Descartes, right? And the simple question of like, what can you actually prove? And I think the only thing you can prove, he was right, is what's happening in your head. So
that's not Descartes' point, but go ahead.
Okay, so I was having super, super duper bad deja vu where I was, here's the personal experience part, in my brain at least, convinced that I knew what was going to happen if I did certain actions. And so I would, be crossing the street and I would be holding this takeout box and I'd be like, okay, I'm in the middle of this super bad deja vu thing. And if I close my eyes and I like step to the right, I know this will happen. If I, wait here, then I know this will happen. If I throw out my takeout box in this garbage, I know what'll happen. And like, I can see like the tree of possibilities in my head of what I do if I take each path, almost like the eternal return thing, like as if we were just living this universe on repeat. And I've gone through this billions of times, and in my head, I'm convinced that I've done it before. And
Millie, well, come back, Millie. Did you mute the phone with your face? Millie. Millie. All right, we'll return Millie to the queue.
Oh, this is going to be so disappointing. Yeah, put Millie back in the queue. I'd love
see if
to.
we can get you back. Yeah, same.
I'm taking notes like crazy.
For the moment, though, while we wait, and we're going to probably cap calls there, but we've got quite a few lined up. We've got, well, I won't cap in case Millie has to call back, but Zen in the U.S. believes that they have an argument for the Christian worldview. Zen, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Just fine. Wow, such
Pretty
good
good
audio. Everybody call with Zen's audio from now on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's just like my iPhone, like headphones or something. So.
Hell yeah. All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
What do you got for us, Zen?
I'm glad you can hear me. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. No, I'm a Christian. I'm calling in because I believe that the argument for the Christian worldview, essentially, it could boil down to, even on your guys' view, like even if it's all totally false, like none of this is real, like God is just a fictional made up character in a book. It's like, all right, then I guess people's perceptions of reality, all of that ends up being, relative, subjective. You kind of, make your own purpose. Well, then whatever fantasy somebody makes up is equally as valid or invalid as anybody else's fantasy, and what it seems to me, and this is my argument for the Christian worldview, is that people that live as though Christianity is true tend to have better outcomes in society, even on the atheistic secularist view. So wouldn't it be better that people live and believe that the Christian God is real, even if he's not?
No.
So,
why not?
Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first? Go ahead.
Let me try nutshell this. One of the things is that the various studies that we have that would suggest that people who live life as a practicing Christian have a better life A number of those studies have flaws, not the least of which is that you're talking about people who, of course, you're going to benefit from having the most popular worldview. You're going to benefit from not being a marginalized minority. You're going to benefit from not being one of the groups of people who are oppressed at the hands of people who are advocating for a Christian worldview or similar like that. So that's one aspect of it that's problematic. But at the end of the day, all I care about is whether or not it's true. If it's not true, then that means whatever benefit people are getting from Christianity isn't coming from Christianity or the truth of the doctrines of Christianity, but from something else. And it seems that if we could find what that something else is, whether it is a system that prejudices things in favor of people of a certain religion, or, as I've said before, if prayer keeps you calm, that can extend your life. You might be able to do the same thing with meditation. You might be able to do the same thing just by knowing, hey, I'm better off in this situation being calm. It is, in my opinion, always in our best interest to investigate, to find out what the truth of the situation is, so that whatever is allowing people who are Christian to get a better life, if they in fact do get a better life, is something that we can find. Because if it turns out it's because Christianity is true, that would be worth knowing. And if it turns out it's because Christianity is false, but there's some secondary or tertiary causes there, that would also be worth knowing. I'd rather not live a lie just because it seems to be comforting and beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
hang on, Zen.
Sorry, go ahead.
Before you jump in. Yeah. Matt already kind of touched on it. Just say, as far as this, wouldn't it be better? You would have to change a lot for a person for it to quote unquote be better. And the nature of the outcomes that you're describing as better are different. But a person who, as Matt mentioned, comes from a marginalized community, you could just go out of religion and you could go with something like race. Should a person who is very much struggling and wants a better economic outcomes look at a place and go, that place has better economic outcomes without any regard for their own personal stake in life? Because if it's a person who is saying, I really want to move there because the outcomes are better. So say somebody who is saying, I want to move to Pakistan because that is a better economic climate than mine. And they aren't considering what their race or their religion or their thing is when they're going to make that move. That would be a terrible thing to disregard, because you can't just live comfortably in Pakistan as anybody, and you can't just live comfortably in Christianity as anybody else. But the question I have back for you is in regards to your claim of validity, that essentially the Christian worldview is as valid as, let's say, mine, which is, I want to promote skepticism. That's the thing that I want to share. I want to promote skepticism and humanism. So you would say it is as valid, the Christian worldview is as valid if there's no God as promoting skepticism and humanism. What does the word valid mean to you in that scenario?
It's equally as worthy of being acknowledged, just as a legitimate worldview to inform your beliefs upon.
What would make it a legitimate worldview is what I'm asking.
Just something that could inform your beliefs. That's all I'm saying.
So basically you're saying everything is as legitimate as each other if you can just vocalize what your belief is. However, in my opinion, if you're going to start determining validity or legitimacy, you would sit there and go, we can't, like with the last caller, solve hard solipsism, or the problem of hard solipsism, but we can go with, let's just assume we do all exist, and that's the only presupposition we have to make, because we have no other choice. So now we've gone there.
Right.
Hang on, I'm not done.
Yeah.
My position of spreading humanism and skepticism, I can defend with material facts about reality. I can defend within the world that we all are here, and I don't have to make up anything magical or extra, and I don't have to do a trust me, bro. Does it mean everyone's going to become a humanist and a skeptic? Hang on. I'm almost done, I swear. No, but when you're talking about legitimacy and validity, those words mean something to me that a secular viewpoint that doesn't just create truths and tell you to live by them, but observes them and tries to make something consistent with that, does not equal the same level of validity and legitimacy as Christianity. And hence why I would advocate for one over the other, is not just the difference, but one is better than the other.
Right. I'm willing to grant this notion that you don't have to make up the sky fairy. You don't have to make up anything. And that's fine. I'm willing to grant that for the sake of the argument. And to kind of address both of what you're saying is, like, I think Matt mentioned that we need to focus on what's true. We need to affirm what is true. We need to not go against, descriptively true things in reality. But I don't know that you'd be consistent on that. For example, if somebody said, like, held a weapon to your head and said, either affirm that 2 + 2 = 5 or I will unalive you, you're probably going to just say, fine, 2 + 2 = 5.
Of
Right,
course,
yeah.
but that has nothing.
Clearly,
That's nothing. That is a momentary practical thing where the best thing you can do is this. That's not me pronouncing and believing and being convinced that it's true.
Well, what it illustrates, though, is that there are conditions, even on your view, where affirming the truth might not actually be the best outcome.
No, actually it's not, because you're using the word affirming in a way that I don't.
Finish?
No, you can't. The way you're using the word affirming.
Okay. Sorry, my mistake.
You're right. It was your mistake.
Yeah, it is your mistake.
The way you are using the word affirming, to say out loud that statement does not mean that I have accepted it internally. So if you were to ask the actual metaphor of someone gun to your head, accept that 2 + 2 = 5, and your brain state has to change, otherwise you die, like Christianity actually works, to actually hold the belief versus saying it out loud the way Christianity, at least most forms I've ever seen, don't work, where if you just say, I believe in Jesus and God out loud, that will work even if you don't. That would be the actual parallel metaphor. Yours was nonsense.
Professing Christianity versus living Christianity, professing Christianity versus living, professing Christianity versus living Christianity are two different things, which even the Bible acknowledges. How dare you come up with a gun barrel scenario and suggest that at the point of a gun, at saying that 2 + 2 = 5 is the same thing as accepting and affirming that 2 + 2 = 5. That's a difference between professing and believing. It was just bullshit.
Just an analogy.
A terrible
one. It was just an analogy to kind of illustrate this notion that we're not always on the more secular utilitarian worldview. We're not always going to have affirming the truth in our best interest, because there may be conditions that telling or affirming or accepting a lie would actually lead to better outcomes.
Zen,
do you
think
that also be
I muted him.
Zen, do you think we're fucking too stupid to know that? Because what you called in to
I don't
suggest,
know that I'm being engaged with
shut up,
charitably.
Shut up. Shut up. What you called in to suggest was not that on occasion people might lie and profess a belief to their benefit. You called in to suggest that even if it's not true, being a Christian helps you. So why are you now dishonestly trying to argue for an analogy that does not fit your original point?
Well, it tends to reason that people that believe or act as if the Christian God is real, even if that is false, tend to have better outcomes societally, even on your view.
It's like you're not listening to what I say. So I'm going to mute you, and now you're going to listen to what I say.
He's done that several times.
You called in to say that even if it's not true, people who live as Christian have better lives. And rather than get into the nitty-gritty on the data, other than pointing out that there are problems with those studies, what I pointed out was that it's one thing to profess a belief and another thing to actually hold a belief. If there's a benefit to merely professing a belief, and there is, that's fine, but that has nothing to do with someone actually holding the belief. We're here talking about whether or not Christianity is true and whether or not people actually believe it. If you had called in and said, hey, Matt, hey, Jimmy, I know that there are people who can pretend to be a Christian and get a better life out of it, I would have said, well, duh, we all know that. I knew that when I was a Christian. I knew that when the Bible told me. I knew that before the Bible told me. Just like there are people who can pretend to be Christians and get elected to office because you are advocating for people doing something, whether it's true or not, which sets you and everybody you've convinced up to be lied to by the people who profess Christianity in order to get political power. I'm the one that's addressing the actual facts of reality. I'm the one who understands that there are benefits to pretending and that there are benefits to those who actually believe. Why on earth are you coming up with an analogy about saying something? There might be a circumstance where somebody's got a gun to your head where it would be in your best interest to do so. Of course there is. This ain't my first fucking rodeo. I care about whether or not it's true. But if you're not going to argue for the actual belief, but just say, you know, there might be a situation where it's in your best interest to say Jesus is Lord, you're right. If somebody's got a gun to my head, I'm going to say Jesus is Lord. I'm going to go back to all the shit that I knew when I used to believe this stuff for decades when I was studying to be a minister. I'm going to go back to all of that, and I'm going to preach like nobody's ever heard anybody preach before. Because now the situation is, do this or you're dead. In your daily life, there is no do this or profess Jesus or you're dead. That's not a part of your daily life. It's dishonest for you to suggest that there could be.
I have a direct
Continue.
question for Zen. We'll go ahead and unmute you, Zen, and I'm going to ask you a question. Hang on. I'm going to ask you a question, and then you can proceed with your general response. You keep talking, bringing back this things to outcomes. I assume this means that you have familiarized yourself with more data than just, like, say, the American-directed Mayo Clinic ones. That I'm kidding. I think that's exactly what you familiarized yourself with. But let's assume you've familiarized yourself with more. Who has better outcomes? A Christian in a majority Muslim country or an atheist in a majority secular country?
Am I unmuted?
Yep. Can you answer that question?
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Well, I think the dialectic that I was generally
No. This is not answering the question. I asked a direct question. Did you hear it? Do you need me to repeat it? I can repeat it.
Am I going to be able to engage with the...
You can answer the question that
Probably
is
not.
you're engaging.
Probably not if you're not going to answer the
question.
fucking questions. And when we do give you space, you argue dishonestly, forcing us to correct. So you can sit there and smugly think you've done something. Right now, you are the shittiest representative for Jesus Christ that I've spoken to this week.
So far,
and that's saying something. Will you answer Jimmy's question?
Do you need it repeated? That's fine if you do.
Yeah, go ahead and repeat it, please.
Who has a better outcome in similar studies to the ones that you're referring to? Who has a better outcome? A Christian in a majority Muslim country, or I'll broadly just say a majority non-Christian country, but let's go Muslim just to make it simple. Who has better outcomes? A Christian
I don't know.
In a majority Muslim country, or a secular person, an atheist in a secular country?
Yeah, I'll just grant that I don't know the answer to that question.
Great, good. So I'm going to, no, I'm going to inform you because the answer is important. It's the atheist in the secular place. It isn't actually about that Christians specifically have better outcomes than atheists just because you can find a higher number of Christians than atheists because you are polling in places. Matt actually touched on this briefly when he was responding, where that's going to be, it is about the culture you are within. So yes, atheists, when subjected, even in a country with a secular government, to what we have here, Christian nationalism, have worse outcomes, generally, broadly speaking, to the country. However, when you also look at the happiness index of specific states,
Jimmy,
you can find
I need to
the
pause
opposite.
for a second.
Go ahead.
Jimmy. Zen, are you a friend of the Andrew that I just recently debated?
Yeah, I hope you and your husband have a wonderful night.
I wasn't going to, the funny thing is I wasn't going to get rid of Zen. Someone had messaged me that, and I was just sitting there going like, I don't care who they're friends with. We don't put restrictions on who
that
calls
wasn't
in.
the thing.
Yeah, and so of course it was going to end in some kind of Andrew. I would have kept going with you if all you did was not be a fucking bigoted cunt like you are, Andrew. Except for that cunts are useful and you aren't. You are just a piece of you're calling in pretending you have some intellectual thing. It failed at every attempt. And then just when exposed that you are in the group of bigots, the people who are actively trying, and then you actively tried to be the person that you are saying it'd be better for everyone else if you were like me and called in shows pretending to have an intellectual point, and then ended your appearance by trying to hurt the feelings of people from a minority, from an oppressed minority. You're right. We should all aspire to be as good of a person as you, who's, by the way, spent most of their time saying, even if it's a delusion, we should accept it, sort of implying that you think it might be a delusion, sort of implying that you don't care. And actually, this is more explicit. You don't care whether it's true or not. You care whether it fits the utility of your life. And then, by the way, start criticizing other people's utilitarianism. The utility of your life is that it makes you feel good for being a bigot. As has been famously said, good people would do good things and bad people would do bad things. But for good people to do bad things, it takes religion. That's who the fuck you are, Zen. Go fuck yourself.
By the way, for the people sitting there thinking, oh, Matt's got this look on his face because Zen did some damage. I don't give a fuck. I was mad at something Jimmy said. Zen's irrelevant. And it wasn't about who are you friends with. It was very much we know exactly where this call is going to go. And of course, you took the mask off and showed it. Like earlier when I said you are one of the shittiest representatives of Jesus Christ I've had to deal with this week. Yeah. Thanks for proving me right. You and your boy are nothing but bigots.
Yeah.
And how sad that you have nothing better to do on a Sunday than to call in and pretend to defend a position that you can't defend in order to try to misgender my partner. Congratulations. You're amazing. You're amazing. And I'm sure Jesus is proud of you, except that he's not any more real than your proposed intellect.
Yep.
Anyway.
Let's see if we can get Millie back on and if it works.
Yeah, that'd
here.
be good. That was
Millie,
a call I was actually ready for.
You're on the line with Jimmy and Matt. How are you, Millie? Did we get you back, Millie? Are you there? Oh, that's too bad. Millie, we're going to give you another moment to potentially unmute. Can we get you back? Bum ba da bum ba da bum bum ba na 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 na. Da na 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 na. Okay. Ba-ka-da-ba-doo. All right. Sorry, Millie. We tried. We do got to move on, I'm afraid. We don't have that much time anyway. I'm off to read the Book of Mormon, in theory, in 11 minutes, but we'll definitely end up going over. Let's talk to Isaac in New Orleans. Isaac in New Orleans, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt. Well, I don't hear Isaac either, which makes me worry. Oh, shit. I didn't unmute from... I'm so sorry. Millie, call back one more time. Call back one more time. I had muted the bigoted asshole. I'm so sorry. Isaac in New Orleans, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt. Call back one more time, Millie. Go ahead, Isaac.
Yes.
Or Isaac.
Hello,
how do you prefer?
Taking my call. Yeah, Isaac. We spoke once before. Hopefully you don't think I'm too crazy because of the whole dream thing. But I did have, because of the question posed for the video today, why do you believe in God? My main argument would be that, in my personal opinion, Pascal's wager holds more weight than the burden of proof counter. That is my opinion.
I don't understand what that means. Before, hang on. So, yeah. Pascal's wager is an argument that specifically contrasts atheism with a particular version of Christianity. Now, when you say it holds more weight than the burden of proof, that doesn't make sense to me, because the burden of proof is about epistemology. It's about how do we determine what is believable and what should be believable. Pascal's wager is a pragmatic argument that says, even if you're not convinced, you should act as if you're convinced. How does that hold more weight than the burden of proof?
Okay, so, all right. In my understanding, as far as Pascal's wager, I may be wrong in this aspect, but this was my interpretation, was that basically believing, if you believe, you have less to lose than if you don't believe, in which case you have everything to lose. My main point being, if it's not Pascal's wager, you can just take my point for being my point, that I see a lot of times people defer to, well, there's no evidence. The burden of proof is on the person asserting the positive. But as far as, like, say, for instance, for the purpose of Christianity, there's not enough proof for the positive would never hold the weight when being compared to, well, if you're wrong, then eternal barbecue, basically. Because and people do sometimes say, like, well, living the Christian lifestyle, you're expected to do certain things, when in actuality, biblically speaking, you're not required to do anything.
Isaac,
You're not required to pray. You're
Isaac.
Yes.
Actually, the Bible does require you to do some things, but let's assume that you use your argument and you become a Christian, and it turns out the Muslim God's the right one.
Well, that would be just too bad. But let me ask you a question.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah.
Listen. So if you're a Christian and it turns out the Muslims are right, you're fucked. If it turns out the Jews are right, you're fucked. If it turns out the Scientologists are right, you're fucked. If it turns out the Mormons are right, you're fucked. If it turns out that you're the wrong type of Christian, you're fucked. If it turns out any number of these, 1,000 different propositions about a God, if you don't get exactly the right one, you're fucked. So how are any of them any different from being in the atheist position? And if they're not, and you're fucked in all of them except you're the right one, then Pascal's wager doesn't work, because Pascal's wager doesn't tell you which one's the right one. How do you tell which one's the right one?
Well, let me speak from my personal brand of Christianity.
Isaac.
Does anyone answer the questions I asked anymore?
Why on earth do you think I'm going to let you speak from your particular brand when I just asked you a very specific question? How do you tell when I'm done fucking talking and it's your turn to answer the question? How do you tell which one's right?
I do apologize. There's a delay.
You can't blame a delay when you interrupt mid-sentence to part of the sentence he had said. That's not how delays work.
How do you tell which one's right?
I can tell which one I believe in, and I can only speak on what I believe in. I can't speak on the beliefs of other people. The question asked in the title is, why do you believe in God? Not why do other people believe in God?
Isaac. Okay. Isaac. The question was, why do you believe in God? And you say that because of Pascal's wager. But we've already demonstrated Pascal's wager cannot verify your reason.
All right, so just to recap, because my point was whether maybe perhaps I used the wrong term using Pascal's wager. Maybe I should say my reasons, and then we can argue at that point, because Pascal's wager, I've heard about it. I know some of the tenets, but
Isaac,
I'll digress.
Which God do you believe in and why?
I believe in the God of Abraham. I believe in the Bible. The Bible states, verily I say unto you, that if you believe on the Son of Man, you will not be condemned. There's only, according to the Bible.
Isaac.
Yeah.
Do you think I don't know what the Bible says? Telling me what the Bible says does not tell me.
But I don't know why you're saying.
Why are you fucking interrupting me, Isaac? Is that the delay?
It must be, because that's not my intention.
You responded to the sentence he was in the middle of to what he was saying. Jesus Christ. I get so annoyed with the people who blame the delay when it's demonstrably not the delay.
Isaac, I know what the Bible says. I want to know why you believe it.
Well, because believing it, according to the Christianity I was raised non-denominational, believing it only requires belief in Jesus for salvation. It's pretty easy, you know. Do I believe Jesus?
Okay, I muted you so that there's no delay. Now you can listen to me. Am I correct in understanding that you believe the biblical God because you were raised in it and it's easy and doesn't require anything from you? Is that a correct assessment of what you just said?
You could, yeah, to sum it up, you could say that.
Cool.
I was raised in it, and
well, thank you. I'm saying what you said. You said you were raised in it, and you said that it's easy and doesn't require anything of you. And so I wanted to clarify. So you believe in a God, you believe in the God of the Bible, and you believe in it specifically because that's what you were raised with and because it's easy and doesn't require anything of you. Do you think that's a good reason to believe that yours is correct?
I wouldn't say necessarily that my good reason is not particularly that. My good reason is that, say for instance, because a lot of people.
Hang on, I muted you. See, we were finally getting somewhere because you told me what God you believed in and why. And then I asked for clarification about the why. And you started to affirm, and you affirmed the clarification. And then when I asked if you thought that was a good reason, now all of a sudden you're saying, well, that wasn't my good reason. I've got another reason that's a good reason. So let's back up. I only want to know a good reason that you believe. I don't want to know the bad reasons you believe. I don't even understand what kind of person would tell me the bad reasons they believe instead of giving me the good reasons. Give me your best reason, the best reason you have for believing in the God of the Bible. Go.
All right, just to clarify, that was your extrapolation, that first reason. My personal good.
Okay. Stop, Isaac. It wasn't an extrapolation. It was what you literally said. I then asked you if it was fucking correct, and you acknowledged that it was. How dare you try to suggest that I am extrapolating inaccurately about what you said and you affirmed? I'm going to unmute you. And then you're going to give me your best reason with no preamble, no bullshit about how it's my spin. You're going to give me your best reason or I will drop you like a hot fucking rock. Give me your best reason, Isaac.
Like I said, it's because of the concept of hell. Period. That's it.
So
okay,
fear.
The possibility.
Your best
you
reason
are
for
afraid,
belief is fear.
You are afraid of a particular concept of hell, and therefore you believe the religion that you think is the version of religion that's going to get you out of that hell, right?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. Do you think that's a good reason to believe something is true?
I mean, digging through all my feelings here to see. Personally, I feel like as far as possibilities are concerned, yes, I do think that's a good reason. Because, I mean, what
if it turns out that hell is real?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
What if it turns out that you're wrong and a different hell is real?
Well, that would be unfortunate. I mean, supposedly that's a possibility, but in my research of different religions, I have been researching several religions. I always find something wrong with them. So, I mean, it would be surprising, but so I mean, all I can say is that would be unfortunate.
I'd love to hear an example. Isaac, you researched Islam, right?
A little bit. Just
what did you find wrong about Islam?
That semen comes from the spine.
Right. Okay. And the Bible says that there was a global flood. So why is it that when the Quran claims that semen comes from the spine, Islam is wrong, But when the Bible claims a global flood, it's not wrong, even though that is a demonstrably incorrect thing.
Not gonna lie, I probably have my own
biases.
I would need, for me personally, I would need, because I've looked into.
So you are saying you don't have a good reason to believe, Isaac. You are saying you have fear, and you start with your conclusion, and you want to say that that has heavier weight than the burden of proof. And we're saying you shouldn't believe until you have a good reason. And you want to project this idea that you're going out there researching and eliminating the other possibilities, but you're not. You're just looking for a way that it is in conflict with your belief while leaving your belief on a pedestal. So Isaac, let me ask you directly, now that I've already asserted one way, do you care if your belief is true?
Of course I do.
How can you say that when you just said, how is that consistent with what you just said, that when the Quran was false, said something wrong, you dismiss the Quran, but you don't dismiss the Bible because, as you stated, as you admitted, you have biases. Is it possible to ignore things, acknowledging your biases, and care if something is true?
Well, to be completely honest with you, because of the churching, the indoctrination I've gone through, it would take a significant amount of things to bring me out of my Christian foundation.
So
like right now,
why not just start over? Why not just go?
Because you don't understand the burden of proof, which is why you're shifting it.
Yeah. Why not just start with, okay, no. I can start with Christianity as long as I don't die in the next 5 minutes, I'll be fine. I'm going to go down to 0. I know I've heard these things of conflict. I'm down to 0. Okay. I'm currently saying I don't hold a belief that Christianity is true or false. Let me list the reasons why, not I want it to be true, why it appears to be true. So fear is not, because you could say anything is true with fear. I could tell you that I'm magical, I'm God, and if you don't believe it, your colon will fall out and you'll have to wear it like a tail for the rest of your life. Okay? And you could fear that and believe that. That wouldn't be a good reason. You just start going, what are the good reasons to believe it's true? What are the bad reasons to believe it's true? What might point to it being untrue? And then you make the conclusion. And now you're suddenly a skeptic and not having to admit to people. And I'm going to calm down because, in fairness, that was an honest thing to do. You've admitted that you are biased and that you're trying to maintain your bias. You've admitted that you've been indoctrinated and it's hard to break free of your indoctrination. So I just gave you a path to it. I just gave you the way I did it. In a way, in a roundabout way. I was trying to prove God true and Mormonism true and discovered that the task was impossible to actually do with things like scientific, empirical evidence and the like. So there, I've given you a thing to try. Can you just go try that and bring it back to us with, okay, I did it. I went down, I sat down with a piece of paper, I put on it, I currently am not saying it's true or false, and I listed the reasons why it's probably true. I listed the reasons why it might not be true or bad reasons to think it's true, and I listed the reasons why it might be false. Can you just do that? And if you come to the conclusion still that it's true, bring to us that column of good reasons to believe it's true.
Well, I should have prefaced it by this, I literally came for assistance in the process because
that's what I just gave you.
For instance, I've been doing a lot of reading, mainly on Christianity. Like the current book that I'm on is The Encyclopedia of Biblical Errancy by C. Dennis McKenzie. And he points out perceived biblical contradictions and things like that. So I'm really, I'm trying. It's it's easier for me to dismiss Islam, for me to dismiss Judaism, because I wasn't raised with that.
Yeah.
But you know, when I
Zach,
was,
just because we have to move on because of time. I get it. You called for
okay,
assistance. If you need to, go back and watch again. I just gave you an exercise that I think will be the best
absolutely, I
assistance.
appreciate that.
Just give that a shot. All right. Call us back with
Sure.
that column. We want to hit these couple of calls that are left. We were supposed to be out 7 minutes ago, but I think that's the best place to leave us here, right? Is try that
All
out
right.
and bring us your column of good reasons to still believe it's true. Sound good?
All right. Yep. Thank
Awesome.
you, guys.
Thank you, Isaac. Sorry. Thank you. The way I see it spelled, I want to say it with some sort of like special pronunciation, but just Isaac. I do want to.
It's
Go ahead.
it's just there's a moment of frustration there where somebody says, "Of course I care if my beliefs are true," when I would like generally assume that anybody I talk to cares whether or not their beliefs are true. I don't understand the people who admit that they don't. But when you say you do, when you say, of course you do, and yet in the same conversation, you demonstrate that either you don't care or you don't care, you don't have the tools to figure out whether or not your beliefs are true. In both of those situations, you're now not actively working on the truth. So
yeah,
good job giving him tools to, or a starter list of.
I would love to see Grungehead. So there's a person in the chat called Grungehead, and you've been banned. So the reason I'm calling you out is to tell you should call us, even as you are sitting there going, "This call-in show is a joke. It's just an echo chamber where you mute people and piss off if they don't answer." If their answers aren't the answers to their the question asked, and they try to take. We know what it's like to be preached to. We know what theological tactics are. We know the way you are programmed to try and subvert facts, to try and subvert having an actual conversation and to actually have your beliefs examined critically, because religious advocation is most often antithetical to that. We are not going to let people, but I want to point out, and this is why I think you should call, that you want to talk down to us. When you said this, in response to my question about why can you dismiss the Quran with the sperm thing, but not the global flood? Because all kinds of crazy shit happened thousands of years ago. So just starting there, name one crazy shit that broke nature, that defied the laws of physics on the level of global flood, happened 1,000 years ago. And where we have Meditech showing where semen comes from, a global flood is not that crazy of a thing to think. All of New Mexico was underwater. All of New Mexico was underwater makes a global flood not crazy to think. And of course, we are talking about a global flood within human history, not about whether or not millions to billions of years ago, before human history, there was water over the entire earth. But I don't know if you know this, Mr. Grungehead, and I hope you call in. Or I don't know your pronouns. Let's say just Grungehead. That's not a pronoun, but you know what I mean. The phrase, "it's not crazy to think the world was covered in water because New Mexico was." I'm going to inform you of this. It's going to blow your mind. New Mexico is not the world. And in fact, if you ever learn to think like a skeptic or a scientist, you would learn that it is, they wouldn't use the word crazy, but I will, crazy to assume that because there is an example in a local spot, that must apply to the entirety of a system. Again, they won't say crazy, but I will. Moving on to these last ones. Millie, I bet we have your audio this time. I'm so sorry. Millie C., you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Hey, that's super funny that you you found that out the second time. Okay, so I'll just go really, really quick through the points, just super quick.
Sure.
So first of all, I want to be wrong. I want you to tell me why I'm wrong. Okay. So I would say I am a theist, but not of the Abrahamic God. I think that guy's a dick. And there's no proof for it. So all the people advocating for it are just silly. But I grew up as an eliminative materialist. I hated transcendentalism. I hated essentialism. I thought everything was matter. I thought life was linear. I thought consciousness was limited to like what you could experience. But for years and years and years, I had super bad deja vu, like not normal person deja vu, like crazy deja vu, where I would have like seemingly valid preemptive knowledge of events that would happen in the future, the short future, but still the future, as if I've like lived my life millions of times over, and like part of me already knows what's going to happen, as if it was like the eternal return, as if I've been, whatever, keep coming back. So I'm convinced of it. I know I'll never convince you, but like my experiences tells me that this is happening.
You're convinced
in the moment,
of what?
It seems
basically that they're precognizant.
Say that again?
You're convinced that your deja vu experiences are real knowledge of an alternate version of reality?
I'm convinced when I am having deja vu, I'm convinced that I am able to predict what would happen in different scenarios if I were to act out, move A or move B or move C. I can like in that moment see this would happen if I do this, this would happen if I do this. And then when I do an action, it is in fact that. Now, it is entirely possible that like memories are being stored wrong in my hippocampus, or I'm having like a hippocampal seizure or a temporal seizure.
Doesn't matter.
I don't know.
Really? Doesn't matter. You have no way to test this. You get one shot through life, whether or not you think that I can see all possibilities or multiple possibilities. I know exactly what's going to happen. And if I do this, this is what's going to happen. You have no way to test that because you can't ever take another path. And you have no way to test what's going on with your perception of it. You have a completely untestable. So you said that you didn't believe in these other gods because there's no proof of it. And now you're telling me that you believe in something that you admit there's also no proof of.
Millie, is it that
I would say
I'm going to try and clean this up for you because I think I might. Are you saying that you're not more trying to make an argument about the alternate paths that you don't take, just that you believe you are precognizant because ultimately when you do take a path, the outcome of the path that you do take is the outcome you predicted it would be?
Correct. And so it appears as if I had some sort of knowledge of it that is external to material reality.
Yes, there are lots.
So my brain says, okay, great, theism.
Right. There are lots of people who believe this. And the times that they have tried to test it with people usually includes like people who have how often do you have these experiences? I'll tell you whether yours will be remotely testable.
Yeah, it's not testable. It is super random.
Okay.
Once a month.
So Millie, let me tell you what happens with the people who don't think it's super random. As soon as you add an external factor of somebody who is going to record, hey, I'm having this experience, I know that this is going to happen if I do this, and you record it down, and you start actually measuring the hits and misses, there are still hits. It turns out there are lots of misses. Is this what's happening with you? I don't know. You might be a precog. I don't know. But for other people, I don't have a reason to believe you are a precog, but for other people, it turns out to just be confirmation bias. You really notice very significantly when things roughly go that way, and you probably adapt the outcome to like, well, I said it would go like this, and this is mostly that, so now, boom, it's a hit. And you mostly let go of the things, or you think, oh, I guess I wasn't precogging that time. I guess that was just me having regular deja vu or whatever. And that gets lost.
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It does, listen, Millie, it doesn't matter because what you've basically said and what you've tried to call in for is you have some sort of occasional deja vu like sensation that convinces you that you have some precognibility, and you're then using that to justify theism. So you have no way to test or demonstrate that you have this ability, but you're convinced you do. You have no way to test or demonstrate that this ability is due to theism being true of any variety or stripe, and yet that's exactly what you're convinced of.
Yeah, that is definitely the logical leap. I do recognize confirmation bias, of course, can happen. I would like to think, as someone kind of aware of how it works, that it wouldn't happen to me. But obviously, we're all humans. I'm sure that happens. The leap in logic is definitely to theism. I guess the most fair point that I would say would be that it seems that there's something going on that isn't pure matter. It seems that like our lived experience of linear limited
No,
consciousness.
it doesn't.
There seems to be something missing.
So it when you say it seems to be that there's something that's not matter, you cannot reach that conclusion. You have not described a single thing that is even verifiable, let alone even if you could demonstrate even if we could reliably test and verify a precog ability of yours, that would still not be a demonstration that it's not material in origin, would it? You don't know what the origin is. So basically what you're saying is, I'm experiencing things that I don't know how to explain, so I'm going to explain it with magic.
Yeah, Millie, just because we want to wrap this up and get the show over, I've got a suggestion for you, and then I'd say call back either next Sunday, though I won't be here next Sunday. If you want to talk to Matt and I together, call back the following Sunday and call early in the show. I think it's funny. I usually recommend this for other people who are trying to have better conversations. I think you need to go watch some street epistemology with Anthony Magnabasco just to figure out what questions you need to be asking yourself about the assertions, just to start asking yourself questions that begin with like, how have I eliminated the possibility of X? How have I justified a statement like it's not matter, which there are things that aren't matter, but Matt correctly changed it to material because energy isn't matter, for example. But energy, the way religious people, especially deistic and pantheistic people use it, usually doesn't mean that either. That's an aside and it's irrelevant. Go watch some street epistemology and learn how to ask yourself questions about the justification in why you believe it. And then call back. And I'd love to have that follow-up convo. I'd love to see if it might be that that's the difference between you going, even if you hold on to, as Matt rightly pointed out, some sort of spiritual belief, it doesn't sound like you have a God belief. And so we can break down and find a better definition of what your actual spot is between now and then. Does that sound good, Millie?
Great, yeah. Could you tell me again the name, street epistemology with...
I think if you just typed in Anthony Magnabasco, I think that's the name of the channel. But the tactic is called street epistemology.
Okay. Anthony Magnabasco. Thank you. Yeah. Hey, listen, I really appreciate you taking my call 3 times.
Sure. Thanks,
so
Millie.
yeah, I would love to call back in 2 weeks once I, kind of get this more figured out. Thank you.
Cool. Very cool. Thank you, Millie.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. This next one's going to be less than a minute long. I'm very sorry to do this to you. Don't even have the right name tag. Daniel in Toronto, I'm going to ask, I assure you, I'm sorry. You were on the line for a while there. I'm even more sorry than you because I paid for the call. Can you call back tomorrow? Skeptalk would already be a sort of better one.
Okay.
Call for it. But Forrest will be on tomorrow with Gordon Walker, who is super into mushrooms, but not the drug, the fungus. Anyway, but the two of them will be on. Forrest is a very good skeptic. If you want to call and talk to them about the alien reality behind UFO phenomenon, we just don't have the time here.
The drug's also a fungus. It's literally a mushroom.
No, I know. I meant to broadly, if you just say the word mushrooms, colloquially people jump to the drug. I mean,
there's a difference between mushrooms and shrooms. That would be the distinction. Yeah.
That's what I meant. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Bye.
It just got me. It's funny because you're like, oh, he's really into mushrooms, not the drug, the fungus. And I'm like,
I'm sure he likes the science behind the drug one too, and why they exist and everything. The category, not the specific colloquialism. Matt, fun show. Slow. I mean, slow start, but we had
wild
some fun
stuff. I mean, apart from it's, I don't know. There's some difficulty in. I don't know. There's a number of difficulties in this, and so there's more stuff to think about. So, like every other show we've done on Sundays, I will spend the next 3 hours running it through my head and thinking about it. And could have done this different. Could have said that different. Why did this bug me? Why couldn't we get an answer here? Why wasn't that right? And hey, that was pretty cool. So we'll do that more.
Yeah. I almost wonder if we should do a third or fourth. What are we up to? A number of types of debate shows, but. I wonder if there's a Socratic debate show, like, okay, you're going to get to say this, you will later, get to do bigger defenses. But right now, your responses are limited to yes or no. And we do a segment of that for this number of minutes, and then you get to expound, and then we come back to it, and then we expound. That could be kind of fun. That could be an interesting thing.
I mean, NBOSS is all about directing questions. They're under the gun with questions the whole time. They're just not necessarily yes or no questions. I worry, and it could work out, but I worry that saying people already get irritated. I don't tend to start with, this is a yes or no question. Give me a yes or no. We just end up getting there when every other attempt to figure out what the fuck you're talking about goes sideways. So
That's
now it just needs to be, hey, give us this yes or no. I worry that if we just did that, it would maybe it would be, and brainstorming this, that's how we get to the definition. Do you believe in a God? Yes or no? Yes. Do you believe that this God is a thinking agent? Yes or no? Yes. You could do that to get to the thing. Now here's what you've defined. Boom.
Yeah.
Defend it.
We could even do segmented ways where we out in advance say, here are the first ones. So in segment 1, you got this, this, and this. And maybe in segment 2, it's the yes or no question you have leads to, can you form a syllogism? Yes. Now do so. Boom. Now segment 3 is talking about the elements of your syllogism. Like it could be, we could have fun with it and make it very structured. But I'm autistic, so I'm realizing as I'm saying this might only appeal to people like me, where it's like perfect.
I'm saying yes, and that I understand what you're saying. I don't know if you're right.
Yeah. It might not have broad appeal.
Welcome to defining terms.
That's right. But in a way, I almost think it could be functionally useful to, again, in the same way that I had the caller this time, go try that out, not because they need to learn how to ask other people better questions, but how to ask themselves better questions. It could be that would be a useful thing. But I'm gonna head over to read the Book of Mormon. Matt, what are you up to? You got streams? You got things you want to announce for this week?
I have snakes to take care of. I'm going to be on Dying Out Loud with Dave on Tuesday night, and on Wednesday night, myself and Jeff Blackwell will be here to talk about legal aspects with regard to the broader atheist community, and whatever we feel like. So if you've got legal questions about church-state separation, about what the religious right and the Christian dominionists in particular are trying to do here, or if you've just been frustrated with, hey, I feel like we're not making good use of the legal system to maybe help out. What are the limits of that? How can we best do it? Jeff would be a great person to ask. I know I have lots of lawyers on my show, probably lawyers more frequent. I should have more doctors. I should get Dr. Angie back on to talk about stuff, but the lawyer stuff, it's really useful. And I have some very good friends that are amazingly good at particularly the First Amendment stuff.
Very cool. I'll see everybody too. I'll have new episodes of the Sometime Show this week, but I got to tell you, the thing I want to tell you most is that I love you, baby.
That's the song.
I think we might be synced up. We're very Night at the Roxbury right now.
I drove 6 hours yesterday and got very little sleep, and so I'm ready to go take care of snakes. I don't need to keep bobbing my head.
Heck yeah. I was going to say...
Thanks to our mods, screeners,
That's true. Yes, thank you very, very much to our mods and screener. I think Dragon was a screener today. The fact that we were synced up means that the delay between us is exactly 1 beat of this song. Yeah. I just realized that. That's cool. All right, goodbye, everybody.